Chapter 447. The dust settled today. Qin Sheng finally vented his anger on the Lin family. He would not make trouble for the Lin family in the future. After all, the Lin family had declined. From today's scene, it could be seen that not a single member of the Lin family stood out to talk to him. Everyone either took the initiative to beg for mercy or remained silent. It was all up to him to perform. It was really meaningless. Before he came to Ningbo, he had thought that it would be a deadlock between the two sides. However, it turned out that the Lin family could not withstand a single blow at all. It only took them 3 days to surrender completely, which really disappointed him. But it was not a bad thing. He could leave Ningbo and go back to Shanghai in advance. After all, there were many things waiting for him to deal with. It was unnecessary for him to waste time in Ningbo. Qin Sheng left the living room with Lin Su and did not pay attention to the people of the Lin family anymore. He had taught them a lesson and apologized to them. For the time being, these people would only avoid him and Lin Su when they saw them. However, it would not take long for them to repair their relationship with Lin Su. After all, Lin Su would get 40% of the property of the Lin family. She would be the real owner of the Lin family in the future. Who dared to ignore her? After all, no one was willing to give up their own interests. It was said in the movie that only children could tell right from wrong, while adults only looked at the pros and cons. After Qin Sheng and Lin Su went out, all the members of the Lin family looked at each other. Some of them were sobbing in a low voice, some were sighing, and some did not dare to stop slapping themselves. After all, the bodyguards of the Chu family were still in the living room. The only people Qin Sheng did not target were Lin Changhe and his family. After all, they had taken care of Lin Su and never made things difficult for him. Lin Changhe did many things for the sake of the Lin family. On the contrary, he never had any opinions about Qin Sheng. On the contrary, he appreciated this young man very much. Moreover, Qin Sheng liked Lin Yu, his sister-in-law. Lin Chongting no longer smiled perfunctorily. He said with a sullen face, "That's how it will be in the future. I've already admitted defeat. Qin Sheng is not someone you can deal with. If you want to court death, I won't stop you, but don't involve the Lin family." This was probably the most embarrassing moment of his life, especially when his image in front of the Lin family had completely collapsed. No one said anything. Yu Hong wanted to mutter a few more words, but when she thought of the young man's unchallengeable aura, she gave up in an instant. Moreover, Lin Chongting had already said so. What could she do even if she felt wronged? After all her confidence came from her husband and son. Lin Changhe said calmly, "Actually, nobody did anything wrong. Every family would have made the same choice." Qin Sheng said that he could understand. Moreover, Qin Sheng was actually a good young man. He was not unreasonable, which could be seen from his attitude towards Susu. If it weren't for Susu, Qin Sheng would have hated the Lin family to the core and would have tried to kill them this time. The two mistakes we made were that we didn't treat Susu well before. After all, Susu is the daughter of the Lin family. I don't think I need to say how many of you treated Susu. Secondly, when Susu brought Qin Sheng to our Lin family, even if we didn't agree, we had many ways to solve the problem. We shouldn't have been so sarcastic. Everyone has grievances in their hearts. Qin Sheng also said it just now. So, you can't blame others for what happened today. You asked for it. Reflect on yourself in the future. If you still act like this, you will bring trouble to the Lin family sooner or later. Since my eldest brother asked me to take charge of the Lin family, I won't be polite to you anymore. No one said anything, and no one refuted Lin Changhe's words. After all, Lin Changhe didn't say anything wrong. It could be regarded as an end to the matter between the Lin family and Qin Sheng. However, everyone was reflecting or muttering in their hearts. Most of them thought that if they had treated Susu better these years, they wouldn't have been in this situation today, and they could have gained more benefits in the future, such as Lin Changhe's family of 3. Lin Su took Qin Sheng to the courtyard where the old lady lived. Since Lin Su and the Lin family fell out, the old lady moved here. After all, the old lady often quarreled with the two brothers of the Lin family, and she was so angry that her health was damaged. The old lady's Buddha hall was also moved here. At this moment, she was still chanting in the Buddha hall. It was not until the servant told her that Su brought her boyfriend to visit her that the old lady stood up with a smile on her face. Lin Su hadn't seen her grandmother for a long time. She didn't even come to the New Year's Eve dinner. Lin Chongting didn't allow her to see the old lady either. So when Lin Su saw her grandmother, she was so excited that her eyes turned red. "Grandma, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I made you worry." The old lady had been worried about Lin Su. Since she knew that Lin Su didn't like Yen Chaozong, the old lady had been standing behind Lin Su and supporting her to find her own love and marriage. If the old lady hadn't taken the pressure from the Lin family, Lin Su would have broken down long ago. During this period, the old lady had fallen ill several times. So at this moment, she looked much older and her face was very pale. The old lady held Lin Su's hand and smiled kindly. "Silly girl, if you want to say sorry, it should be me. It's me who didn't protect you well." "Grandma, don't say that. I feel even worse," Lin Su said, biting her lower lip. Tears were about to come out. At this moment, Qin Sheng put his arm around Lin Su's shoulder and comforted her. "Su, Grandma cares about you. You should be happy. After all, everything has passed." Lin Su nodded her head heavily and rubbed her teary eyes. The old lady looked at Qin Sheng and said with a smile, "Good boy, you didn't let me down. Su has a good taste. Although I didn't protect her well, with you protecting her, I can rest assured in the future." "Grandma, I've done so many things for the Lin family. Don't you blame me?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. The old lady let out a long sigh and said, "Children and grandchildren have their own happiness. As an old lady, I can't care so much. Moreover, these years, the Lin family has been getting worse and worse. Someone should teach them a lesson so that they can be prepared for danger in times of peace. Otherwise, sooner or later, the Lin family will be destroyed in their hands." How could the old lady not know what had happened in the Lin family these days? After all, the old lady had been in charge of the Lin family for so many years. How could she not have a few mouthpieces? The old lady had already guessed that it was Qin Sheng who did it, but she didn't know what his bottom line was. At this moment, Qin Sheng took the initiative to admit it to the old lady. He was not afraid that the old lady would scold him, because this was what he had to do. "Grandma, it's good that you can understand me. Anyway, the Lin family will always be Su's family. No matter how dissatisfied I am with the Lin family, I won't really do anything to them," Qin Sheng said honestly. Hearing this, the old lady was satisfied and said, "With your words, I can rest assured. I don't know what happened to you and I don't want to ask you. I just hope that you can treat Su well no matter what happens in the future. She has suffered a lot in these years. I just can't stop worrying about her." "Grandma," Lin Su hugged her grandma and said. Qin Sheng said firmly, "Grandma, don't worry. I can be sorry to anyone in my life, but I can't be sorry to Su. No matter if I am rich or poor in the future, I will treat Su well from the bottom of my heart. I won't let anyone bully her. I won't let her suffer any grievances." "Okay, I believe you." The old lady nodded slowly. The old lady held Lin Su's hand and then Qin Sheng's hand. She said solemnly, "From now on, I will leave Su to you. I hope you can accompany her until you grow old." "Grandma." Lin Su couldn't hold it in anymore. She was so emotional that her face was covered with tears, and she hugged her grandma tightly. Qin Sheng was also touched. The old lady really cared about Su. Qin Sheng didn't stay in the Buddha hall anymore. He asked Lin Su to say goodbye to his grandma. After all, he didn't know when he would come back again. Moreover, Lin Su's relationship with the Lin family was getting weaker and weaker. After Qin Sheng walked out of the auxiliary building, he stood in the yard and smoked. Chang Baji and Nangong followed him. He didn't go to the main building. After all, he didn't want to face those people from the Lin family. He just said casually, "We will go back to Shanghai later. Thank you for your hard work these days." "You have a conscience," Nangong pouted and said. Since there were no outsiders present, Nangong didn't have any scruples. Qin Sheng asked with interest, "Nangong, do you have someone you like?" "Why do you ask?" Nangong frowned. She didn't like others to ask about her privacy. Qin Sheng said emotionally, "I don't mean anything else. I just want to say that if you have someone you like, try your best to fight for him. No matter how many setbacks and tribulations you encounter, don't give up. After all, life is beautiful if you have someone you like." Although Qin Sheng said it from the bottom of his heart, Nangong felt it was boring. Qin Sheng, who was smoking, smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything more. Thinking of the journey between him and Lin Su, it was really not easy. Under the circumstance that everyone was not optimistic about them, they finally made it to the end. If either of them had flinched during this period, this relationship would have been over. Maybe this was fate. Only by fate could they be together in the end. Half an hour later, Lin Su finally came out of the auxiliary building. She talked a lot with her grandmother. Her grandmother also told her and Qin Sheng to understand and take care of each other. In the end, she left reluctantly. "That's it?" Qin Sheng said with a faint smile. Lin Su smiled and nodded. "Yes." Qin Sheng said to Lin Su with a smile, "Go and pack your things. We'll go back to Shanghai now." More than 10 minutes later, Qin Sheng pulled Lin Su's 2 suitcases back to the yard. Nangong and Chang Baji hurriedly put the suitcases into the trunk. Qin Sheng looked at Lin Su and said, "Let's talk to them." Lin Su didn't refuse Qin Sheng's suggestion. She still said that no matter what, they were her family. In the living room of the Lin family, everyone was still waiting for Qin Sheng and Lin Su. No matter how impatient they were, no one dared to leave. Yuing was still slapping herself weakly. After all, her face had been slapped swollen, and the corners of her mouth were bleeding. Qin Sheng told her to stop after he came in. Then he said to the 2 brothers of the Lin family, "Uncle Lin, everything is done. I'm going back to Shanghai with Susu. I came in to say hello to you. Do you have anything else to say?" Hearing this, everyone felt relieved. They wanted Qin Sheng, the devil, to leave as soon as possible. Finally, Lin Chongting couldn't help saying, "Qin Sheng, take care of Susu." "I will," Qin Sheng said calmly. Lin Chongting was so pitiful and sad. Lin Yu ran over and hugged Lin Su. "Sister, you have to be well. I'll go to Shanghai to see you later." "Yes, you too," Lin Su said with a faint smile. She finally smiled. However, Lin Su didn't say anything to the other members of the Lin family. She just nodded to them as a greeting. She didn't care what others thought. Qin Sheng thought it was enough, so he turned around and walked out with Lin Su. After a few steps, he turned back and said to Lin Changha, "Second Uncle Lin, don't forget that thing." "Don't worry. I know." Lin Changha smiled bitterly. The other members of the Lin family still didn't know what was going on. A few minutes later, Qin Sheng and Lin Su got in the car and left the Lin family. Half an hour later, they left the Marriott Hotel for Shanghai. The matter of the Lin family was finally settled. Chapter 449. Chapter 448. Chapter 448. The first meeting. I finished my grandma's funeral yesterday afternoon and rested for a long time. I'll start updating today. Sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for your understanding. I'll make up for the 5 chapters one missed in the past few days in the second half of the month. In this trip to Ningbo, except for Lin Songhao, who had killed himself on the way, there was not much trouble. The Lin family, which had seemed powerful in the past, could not withstand a single blow from Qin Sheng. This was the biggest advantage brought about by power and background. It helped Qin Shing settle the old scores easily and completely vent his resentment against the Lin family. The Lin family completely surrendered. Lin Chongding lowered his head and admitted his mistake. All the other members of the Lin family also apologized. This was Qin Shing's plan. However, Lin Su got 40% of the Lin family's property, which was the interest the Lin family paid. When Qin Shing returned to Shanghai from Ningbo, he just informed Chu Fan. He did not say goodbye to him in person. After all, there were still some things to deal with in Shanghai. Moreover, his grandma had called him several times these days, asking when he would come back. Every time he received a call from his grandma, Qin Shing felt a little sad. He did not dare to waste any time and had to rush back to Shanghai. However, the bodyguards of the Chu family informed Chu Fan. Chu Fan finally waited for Qin Shing at the entrance of the expressway. When he saw Qin Shing, he complained, "Qin Shing, you are so unkind. At least let me see you off. Brother Chu, I've troubled you these days. How can I trouble you again? Moreover, there are still some things to deal with in Shanghai. My sister is also a little anxious, so I hurried back." Qin Shing shook hands with Chu Fan and told him the truth. Chu Fan smiled and said, "I understand. Anyway, I have to see you off. Besides, your sister and I are old classmates. I haven't seen her for a long time. I brought her some Ningbo specialties." Qin Shing did not refuse. After all, Chu Fan had helped him a lot this time. He also knew that Chu Fan needed help from the Qin family. So he replied, "Then I'll accept it for my sister. But Brother Chu, my sister should stay in Shanghai recently. If you have time, you can come to Shanghai for a gathering." Qin Shing took the initiative to offer an olive branch. How could Chu Fan not accept it? He said in a hurry, "Ha ha ha, that's great. Let's meet in Shanghai in a few days. I won't keep you here this time." Qin Shing smiled and nodded. Lin Su also nodded to Chu Fan slightly. Chu Fan was always considerate when he did things. Moreover, he would help Qin Shing to the end. After Qin Shing got in the car, he told Qin Shing that several bodyguards of the Chu family would escort them to Shanghai. After all, Lin Songhao's case was not over yet. As for the result, nobody knew. Qin Shing did not refuse Chu Fan's kindness. His evaluation of Chu Fan gradually improved. Chu Fan was ambitious, had ideas, knew what to do, and could put them into action at the same time. If Chu Fan did not succeed, God would be blind. On the highway back to Shanghai, Chang Baji and Nangong took turns to drive. Lin Su, who did not sleep well last night, was a little sleepy at this moment. She leaned on Qin Shing to rest. Qin Shing, on the other hand, was thinking about the next arrangement after the matter in Ningbo was over. First of all, what had happened to the Qin family for her sister to personally come to Shanghai? After all, the forces that could move the Qin family could not be underestimated. Second, should he stay in Shanghai to deal with the Yen family and go back to Hangzhou to solve other problems? Or should he go back to Beijing to finish his studies and go back to Xi'an to deal with the Lin family? Finally, Qin Shing chose the latter. The most important thing now was to clear Uncle Lin's name and reunite with the Lin family as soon as possible. As the adopted son of the Lin family, he had to repay Uncle Lin's kindness. Lin Su didn't wake up until they entered the downtown area of Shanghai. She could sleep for a long time because she leaned on Qin Shing's shoulder. "Are we in Shanghai?" Lin Su asked in a daze. Qin Shing smiled and nodded. "You are a good sleeper. Didn't you sleep well last night?" Lin Su just smiled faintly and did not reply. Instead, she asked, "Where are we going now?" "To our new home in Shanghai," Qin Shing replied with interest. Lin Su didn't know what Qin Shing meant. Although she had reconciled with her family and got 40% of the property, the house she used to live in had been taken back by the Lin family. She didn't bring the key with her this time. So she didn't have a place to stay except for the hotel. But she would live wherever Qin Shing lived. The place that Qin Sheng was going to was one of the properties that Qin Ran had bought in Shanghai before. It was in the financial district of Lujiazui, close to the apartment that she lived in and also relatively close to the Qin family's company in Shanghai. In this way, it would not take too much time to go to and from work. This was also a meeting gift that Qin Ran gave to this sister-in-law who had yet to marry her. Qin Ran was waiting there. Although she was familiar with Lin Su, this was the first time they met, so she attached great importance to it. Half an hour later, Nangong drove directly to Shermao Riviera Garden according to Qin Sheng's order. The bodyguards of the Chu family drove back to Ningbo after Qin Sheng entered Shanghai. After receiving Qin Sheng's call, Qin Ran waited for them at the gate of the housing estate. Qin Sheng saw his sister from afar. After getting out of the car, he walked directly to her and smiled. "Sister, why don't you wait inside? It's cold outside these days. What if you catch a cold?" Qin Ran smiled and joked. "Good. You didn't forget your sister even though you have a wife. I'm relieved." "Sister, what are you talking about? Is your brother that kind of person?" Qin Sheng said angrily. He couldn't leave his sister more and more. He missed her so much after not seeing her for a few days. Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and said, "I don't want to talk to you. I can't ignore the future daughter-in-law of the Qin family." After saying that, Qin Ran looked at Lin Su, who was not a stranger to her. Lin Su was dressed in plain but elegant clothes. She was wearing high heels and was only a little shorter than Qin Sheng. When the two stood together, they were really a good match. Qin Ran had to admit that Qin Sheng had good taste. Such a daughter-in-law would definitely bring honor to the Qin family. "Lin Su, why are you thinner than when I saw you last time? I'm afraid someone will feel sorry for you. I almost forgot to introduce myself. My name is Qin Ran. I'm Qin Sheng's long-lost sister, his biological sister." Qin Ran said half-jokingly. She didn't greet Lin Su politely. Instead, she came straight to the point. It could be seen that she didn't regard Lin Su as an outsider and approved of her. Lin Su smiled shyly. "Nice to meet you, sister. Qin Sheng has told me about you many times, but you're more beautiful than I thought." "Lin Su, you're too polite. I'm not as beautiful as you. I really don't know how Qin Sheng fooled you. Maybe the ancestors of the Qin family are lucky to have you in their hands. But Lin Su, if you regret it, I can help you now." Qin Ran held Lin Su's hand and said with a smile. Before meeting Qin Sheng's sister, Lin Su was afraid that the Qin family would be dissatisfied with her because of what her family had done to Qin Sheng. But after meeting Qin Sheng's sister, Lin Su finally felt relieved. If Qin Sheng's sister was dissatisfied with her, she wouldn't have such an attitude. After hearing this, Lin Su felt very comfortable. She looked at Qin Sheng and said with a smile, "Sister, I've never regretted it. I'm just afraid that someone will abandon me in the future." Qin Ran immediately said loudly, "How dare he? Lin Su, don't worry. If he dares to bully you in the future, tell me. I'll teach him a lesson." Qin Sheng said with a wronged expression, "What are you talking about? I didn't say anything." You two beautiful girls echoed each other. "In the end, it's my fault." After hearing this, Qin Ran and Lin Su could not help but cover their mouths and laugh. After laughing, Qin Ran held Lin Su and said, "Well, it's cold outside. Let's not stand here. Let's go in and see your new home. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, tell me." After Qin Ran, Qin Sheng, and Lin Su entered the community, Nangong and Chang Baji left to rest. They were also quite tired these days. Qin Sheng had arranged a place for Chang Baji to live. Nangong lived in Qin Ran's apartment. After all, the Qin family had never treated Nangong as an outsider. The gift Qin Ran gave Lin Su was a big house with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. It was more than 200 square meters. The decoration was luxurious and luxurious. She had hired a famous designer in Shanghai. Qin Ran, who majored in investment, had invested in many properties, especially the houses and office buildings in prime locations. After showing Lin Su around the house, Qin Ran said with a smile, "How is it? Are you satisfied with your new home? Tell me if you need anything." Lin Su did not know what the new home meant. She just replied, "Sister, as long as there's a place to live, I don't have any requirements." "Lin Su, you can't do that. Don't be so polite with me. This will be your home in Shanghai in the future. Of course, you have to pay special attention to it," Qin Ran said with a smile. At the same time, she took out the key and handed it to Lin Su. "This is the first time we meet, and I don't have anything to give you. Just take this house as a gift." Hearing this, Lin Su was stunned. Although she was also from a famous family and had never lacked money, it was the first time for her to encounter such a thing. After all, she was just Qin Sheng's girlfriend now. She had not married into the Qin family officially. This gift from Qin Sheng's sister was too expensive. She had stayed in Shanghai for so many years, of course, she knew how much the house in Riverside Garden was worth. Lin Su looked at Qin Sheng and did not know what to do. She replied, "Sister, this gift is a bit too expensive. I dare not accept it." "Lin Su, this is nothing to the Qin family. Compared to what you've done for Qin Sheng, this is even more nothing. I've been to Xiamen before. I don't know if you still remember me? Although you don't know me, you know me very well. I also know everything about you too in the past 2 years. Sister, thank you for taking care of Qin Sheng. So this gift is really nothing to me," Qin Ran said earnestly. "Sister, this." Lin Su still did not dare to accept it. If she had married into the Qin family, she would naturally feel at ease. At this time, Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Wife, just accept it. This is a little gift from me. Moreover, we need to save more money, don't we?" "You brat," Qin Ran said impatiently. Then she said to Lin Su, "If you don't accept it, I will not be happy." Since Qin Ran and Qin Sheng had already said so, Lin Su could not say anything more. She had no choice but to accept the key that Qin Ran handed over. Qin Ran said with a smile, "That's right. Moreover, I still need your help during this period. Qin Sheng should have told you about it, right?" Lin Su nodded and said, "Yes, he has. Sister, when will we start?" "If it is convenient for you, we will officially start tomorrow." Qin Ran was not polite at all. She said bluntly. Obviously, the matter was urgent. Qin Ran would not be so impatient. Consequently, Lin Su nodded and said, "Okay, then I will go tomorrow." Chapter 450. What should I do? I just returned to Xi'an this afternoon, so the update was a bit late. This time, Qin Sheng did not take Lin Su to meet the old lady. After all, he had to inform the old lady in advance so that she could be prepared. For this granddaughter-in-law whom she had not met yet, the old lady certainly had to prepare a generous gift. Lin Su stayed in the new house to pack things. This would be their home in Shanghai from now on. She did not have to worry about wandering around like before. Lin Su was still a little frightened by the gift from Qin Sheng's sister. This gift was too expensive. A house worth more than 20 million could not be given to an ordinary person. At the same time, it also proved that the Qin family was really a big family with a big business. Lin Su returned to Shanghai after more than a year. No one would believe that she had no feelings. After all, she had worked and lived in Shanghai for so many years, leaving a lot of memories and stories. Moreover, she also reunited with Qin Sheng in Shanghai. From then on, a tortuous love story began. In the end, she had to leave Shanghai because of Qin Sheng. The past was still vivid in her mind. After recalling it and sighing with emotion, she just laughed it off. After all, the ending was beautiful, and that was enough. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran left, Lin Su, who had nothing to do, looked around the new house that no one had lived in before. She thought about what she needed to add, what else she needed to change, and so on. She would treat this as her and Qin Sheng's home in Shanghai. A home needed warmth and comfort, so she had to decorate it well. Qin Ran drove Qin Sheng to Sinan Road. On the way, Qin Ran joked, "You've just been in Ningbo for a few days. Every day, the old lady muttered when you would come back. Every time she called you, she was afraid that you would find her annoying. When did we have this kind of treatment? The old lady really cares about you." "Sister, I know Grandma cares about me, so I will stay with her in Shanghai for a few more days." Qin Sheng smiled faintly. Of course, he knew Grandma's feelings for him. Moreover, Grandma was old and could not stay with him for long. Qin Ran just said it casually. Some things were understood by everyone. The old lady had waited for so many years, and finally had this day before she died. In fact, she was already satisfied. However, the old lady still wanted to make up for the regret and guilt of these years as much as possible while she was alive, so she loved Qin Sheng more and more. "Have you handled the things in Ningbo?" Qin Ran asked in a low voice. This time, Qin Sheng had used the resources of the Zhu family and the Qin family, so he could finish the trifles in Ningbo in a short time. Qin Sheng replied honestly, "There's nothing wrong with the Lin family now. It's just that I may need you to deal with other things, sister. You don't have to worry about Lin Songhao. We shouldn't worry about the final result. After all, it involves a lot of disputes of interest. As for the Lin family, it depends on your attitude toward the Lin family. Only in this way can I give orders," Qin Ran said in a low voice. "The Lin family has already given 40% of the property to Lin Su, so we don't need to target them anymore," Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. This would be Lin Su's dowry in the future, so the Lin family had to bear it even though they knew that they had suffered a loss. Qin Ran smiled meaningfully and said, "Then I know what to do." When they arrived at Old Lady Sinan Road, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran had already made a final decision about the Lin family. That was, they would gradually relieve the pressure on the Lin family. After Lin Su got the shares, they would use the resources of the Qin family to revitalize the Lin family's industry. This was what the Lin family was best at, so Qin Sheng didn't need to worry about it at all. At that time, the Lin family would know that it was a blessing to suffer a loss. When the driver drove the car into the yard, they found a strange car parked at the door. After all, the old lady seldom received guests in Shanghai, so Qin Sheng got out of the car and asked, "Sister, are there any guests today? I haven't been here for 2 days. How would I know?" Qin Ran shrugged and said, "She had been very busy recently because she had to keep an eye on many things here. Otherwise, she would have gone back to Beijing to work." As soon as they walked into the foreign-style house, they heard laughter in the living room. It was a woman's voice, which sounded somewhat familiar. They looked at each other and walked in quickly. "Ruyu, why are you here?" When Qin Ran saw the face of the woman who was chatting with the old lady in the living room, she instantly recognized her, and said in surprise. Facing the door, Song Ryu subconsciously looked up and saw the sister and brother. She smiled and stood up. "Sister Ran Ran, you're back. Grandma was talking about you." As soon as Song Ryu arrived in Shanghai at noon, she directly came to visit the old lady. This was a task assigned by Old Master Song. In previous years, other elders of the Song family came to visit the old lady. This year, Song Ryu happened to be in Shanghai, so Old Master Song asked her to do it. However, it was a few days later than usual. To everyone in the Song family, everyone knew what the old master was trying to do. The relationship between the Song family and the Zhu family had always been good. After all, Old Master Song and Old Master Zhu had worked together in the past and had a good personal relationship. The old lady was wondering why the Song family didn't come to visit this year. Unexpectedly, Song Ryu came. The old lady was very fond of this girl and always talked to her about family affairs. However, the Zhu family didn't know that the Song family and the Qin family were engaged before they were born. Qin Sheng was also surprised to see Song Ryu. He had a good impression of Song Ryu. After all, he had been amazed by her when he first met her. In particular, Song Ryu had a special temperament, which was like a piece of white paper without any dust. She was more like the cloudless blue sky after the rain in summer, and also like the vast expanse of white silence after a heavy snowfall in winter. Qin Shing did not expect that it would be Song Ryu. Qin Shing nodded slightly to Song Ryu. Song Ryu smiled and lowered her head in response. It was a greeting to each other. When the old lady saw Qin Shing, she forgot about Song Ryu, who was sitting on the sofa, and ignored Qin Ran, who she had not seen for 2 days. She stood up shakily and said, "Oh, my Shing-er, you're finally back. I missed you so much." Qin Shing didn't dare to let his grandmother stand up. He quickly ran over to hold her arm and said, "Grandma, I've only been away for a few days. I'm back now. I've been waiting for you for more than 20 years. I was afraid that you wouldn't come back again." The old lady couldn't help but say. Qin Ran couldn't help laughing. Song Ryu also covered her mouth and giggled. The old lady had such a childish side. Qin Shing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Grandma, don't worry. I won't go anywhere. I'll stay in Shanghai to accompany you." The old lady pulled Qin Shing to sit down. She was reluctant to let go of Qin Shing's hand, which showed how much she loved Qin Shing. Qin Shing was quite moved by her heartfelt affection, especially when he thought that his grandmother, who was so old, still missed him every day. Every time she called him, she would ask if he had eaten well or slept well. This made Qin Shing feel a little regretful. That was, his grandmother's health was getting worse and worse. According to his sister, the doctor even gave her a notice of critical illness last time. She was so close to death that he didn't know how many days he could stay with his grandmother. "Shing-er, let me introduce you. This girl is..." The old lady pointed at Song Ryu and was about to introduce Song Ryu to Qin Shing. At this time, Qin Shing took the initiative to say, "Grandma, we knew each other a while ago." "Ah, you know each other?" The old lady was surprised. She thought that Qin Shing didn't know these juniors since he had just come back. Song Ryu also explained with a smile, "Grandma, we met when Qin Shing came to visit us during the spring festival." "Oh, I see," the old lady said thoughtfully. "It must be Qin Chang'an's idea." She was somewhat dissatisfied with Qin Shing. Shing-er had just come back, but he couldn't wait to do those things. He was really anxious. Qin Ran asked casually, "Ryu, why are you in Shanghai? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have picked you up at the airport." Song Ryu replied with a smile, "Sister Ran, I didn't know you were in Shanghai. I thought you were in Beijing. I came to Shanghai to deal with some trivial matters, and I also came to pay a New Year's visit to Grandma. I haven't seen Grandma for a long time." Her tone was very well behaved. Most importantly, her eyes were very clean, which made her special. Qin Ran said happily, "It's rare for you to come out from Beijing. How long will you stay in Shanghai this time?" "I have nothing to do tomorrow. I plan to stay for a few more days this time. Every time I came to Shanghai before, I was always in a hurry and didn't have a good look around." Song Ryu answered honestly. In fact, she didn't like big cities, but remote and quiet towns. Qin Ran took the opportunity to say, "Oh, I see. Qin Shing happens to be free. Let him show you around. He has been in Shanghai for many years. He studied in Shanghai." Before Song Ryu said anything, Qin Shing was stunned and said, "Sister, you what? You don't want to accompany this beauty? Others don't have this chance," Qin Ran said angrily. Although Song Ryu had a good impression of Qin Shing and wanted to know him more deeply because of some things, she could tell that Qin Shing was not happy. So she smiled and said, "Sister Ran, it's okay. I like to walk around alone." The old lady liked Song Ryu, so she was more concerned about this girl. She said, "Hey, how can you do that? Let Shing-er accompany you. I will be worried if you are alone outside." The old lady then said to Qin Shing, "Shing-er, take good care of Ryu for me these days. If she is wronged, I won't forgive you." Qin Shing didn't know what his sister meant. Since his grandmother had said so, he had no choice but to agree. "Grandma, I'm fine. I'm just afraid that Ryu will be inconvenienced." "Ryu, what do you think?" the old lady asked with a smile. Song Ryu smiled and nodded. "I will listen to you, Grandma." Chapter 451. Chapter 450 of The Dead Can't Figure It Out. Qin Shing didn't expect that he would meet Song Ryu in his grandmother's home as soon as he returned to Shanghai. He also didn't expect that his grandmother and sister would give him such a tricky task. Although he had a good impression of Song Ryu, he had only met her once. Qin Shing could understand his grandmother's idea. He could tell that his grandmother liked Song Ryu very much and wanted him to take care of her. But he didn't understand his sister's idea. She knew that Lin Su had just arrived in Shanghai, but she still asked him to accompany Song Ryu. What was going on? What's more, Qin Shing had hoped that Song Ryu would refuse him tactfully. Unexpectedly, Song Ryu agreed directly, which surprised Qin Shing even more. What was going on? Qin Shing was really confused. The old lady asked Qin Shing about his life in Ningbo. Qin Shing had already found a good excuse to talk with his grandmother in the living room. When it was time for her to take a nap, the old lady went upstairs and asked Qin Shing and Qin Ran to take care of Song Ryu. There were some things that her grandmother didn't know, such as the engagement between the Song and Qin families. The two families wanted to match Qin Shing with Song Ryu, but her grandmother knew that Qin Shing already had a girlfriend. Qin Ran was afraid that her grandmother would spill the beans, which would be troublesome. At the same time, Qin Ran felt lucky that she hadn't brought Lin Su here. Otherwise, the matter between the Song and Qin families would come to an end. Song Ryu wouldn't tolerate that Qin Shing already had a girlfriend. Qin Ran did this mainly for the sake of the Qin family. After all, the Song family's background was very important to the Qin family. She liked Song Ryu and Lin Su very much. Both of them were excellent and perfect. Qin Shing didn't care who he chose. She just hoped that Song Ryu and Lin Su could compete fairly, so that Qin Shing would have more choices. To put it bluntly, Qin Ran cared about Qin Shing and wanted to find the most suitable wife for him. As for other things, they didn't matter to her. After the old lady went upstairs, Qin Ran was about to leave. She wanted to give Song Ryu and Qin Shing a chance to be alone, so she said, "Ryu, I have something to deal with in the company, so I can't accompany you now. I'll treat you to dinner after I'm done. You can have a good talk with Qin Shing. I think you have a lot to talk about." Qin Ran's words directly made Qin Shing's eyes widen. He really wanted to question his sister. "Sister, we just met for the second time. What kind of topic could we have? Can you explain it to me?" Qin Ran ignored Qin Shing and ordered, "Qin Shing, take care of Ryu. Don't bully her." After that, Qin Ran smiled at Song Ryu and stood up to leave. Qin Shing walked her out and questioned her outside the foreign-style house. "Sister, what do you mean? If Lin Su finds out about this, she will give me a cold war, won't she?" Qin Ran patted Qin Shing's shoulder and said, "My good brother, you don't know how lucky you are. I'm doing this for you and the Qin family. Think about it carefully. As for Lin Su, don't worry. She's not a petty woman and won't overthink it. You and Ryu are just ordinary friends. What's more, the Song clan and the Qin clan are old friends. It's not a problem for you to show Ryu around." Qin Ran's words were ambiguous. Of course, what she said was not what Qin Shing understood. Qin Shing thought that she wanted him to build a good relationship with the Song clan and gradually build a good relationship between the third generation of the two families, which could also be regarded as inheriting Qin Chang'an's resources. When Qin Shing was still frowning and thinking, Qin Ran had already got in the car and left. Qin Shing smiled bitterly. Maybe he thought too much. When Qin Shing returned to the living room, Song Ryu was casually looking at some ornaments in the living room. These were all the collections of the old lady's family. Since the old lady's brother passed away, they had basically not been touched. The old man used to like collecting some strange things. It seemed that people, especially rich people, were all like this when they were old. Ryu, do you have any place you want to go? If not, follow my arrangement. Qin Shing walked closer and said casually. He called her Ryu quite affectionately. Unconsciously, he had gotten used to calling her Ryu. Song Ryu didn't think there was anything wrong with Qin Shing calling her Ryu. After all, names were meant for others to call her. She turned around and smiled. I know you don't want to. But since Grandma and Sister Ran said so, I can't refuse. Song Ryu's way of speaking was very comfortable. She gave Qin Shing a way out and also made him less embarrassed. She didn't say that in fact, she liked to walk around alone, which was equivalent to blocking Qin Shing's words. Qin Shing had already figured something out. He replied, No, I didn't. I just worried that it would be inconvenient for you. After all, we haven't known each other for a long time, and we are not that familiar. Really? Song Ryu said playfully. Qin Shing said firmly, Yes, I mean it. Song Ryu walked over slowly and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you. It was settled. Song Ryu wanted to know more about Qin Shing. Qin Ran wanted to make the relationship between Song Ryu and Qin Shing progress quickly, and Qin Shing wanted to contact Song Ryu more to deepen the relationship between the two families. Everyone was satisfied. Song Ryu didn't stay in the foreign-style house for long. She only said that she would call Qin Shing after she finished her work tomorrow. After exchanging contact information, Song Ryu left first and asked Qin Shing to inform the old lady later. Qin Shing stayed in the foreign-style house. During this time, he called Lin Su and said that he would pick her up at 6 o'clock and take her to have dinner with his family. Qin Shing said it casually, but Lin Su became nervous. She hurriedly asked who would be there. After all, it was the first time that they would meet. In addition to his sister Qin Ran, his small aunt, his cousins, and an old acquaintance, Sister Xue Qinyan, would be there. Therefore, she didn't have to be so nervous. Although Lin Su had already met Qin Shing's sister and Xue Qinyan, she still felt a little nervous when she heard that she would meet Qin Shing's small aunt. After all, Qin Ran's sister was in the same generation as Qin Shing, but Qin Shing's small aunt was an elder. This was the first time that Lin Su would meet Qin Shing's parents. How could she not be nervous? She was afraid that she would leave a bad impression. What if the previous situation happened again? Therefore, after hanging up the phone, Lin Su hurriedly picked out the clothes to wear at night. However, she couldn't find the right clothes after trying on them. At this time, Lin Su was like most women. In the end, Lin Su had no choice but to call Tan Jing and Song Chu, who had returned to Shanghai, to ask them to come to her office. If they couldn't find the right clothes, she would have to go out to buy clothes. Fortunately, this place was not far from the Guojin Center. Qin Shing left Ningbo, but what happened in Ningbo didn't end there. After all, what happened between Lin Songhao and the Lin family was not a small matter. How could some people not know about it? The first person who got the news was Yan Chaozong, who was in Shanghai. If he knew that Qin Shing and Lin Su were living in Shermao Riviera Garden, which was not far from him, he would probably be shocked. How's the investigation going? What happened to the Lin family? What happened to Lin Songhao? Is there any connection between the two things? Sitting in the office, Yan Chaozong stared at Feng He and asked. Feng He said thoughtfully, Young master, he's back. Who? Yan Chaozong asked subconsciously. Feng He squinted and replied, Qin Shing. After hearing this familiar name, Yan Chaozong's expression changed instantly. He stood up directly and walked up to Feng He. With a look of disbelief on his face, he asked, Do you mean that Qin Shing was responsible for the Lin family and Lin Songhao? Feng He nodded heavily and said, Yes. I spent a lot of money to get the news from the bodyguards and servants of the Lin family. At the same time, I met Lin Songhao's wife. All the spearheads pointed to Qin Shing. These days, Qin Shing has been in Ningbo. What happened to the Lin family and Lin Songhao were done by him. He also took Lin Su away. This news made Yan Chaozong a little scared. At the same time, he couldn't figure out how it was possible. Lin Songhao was powerful in Ningbo. How could Qin Shing overthrow Lin Songhao with his power? How many connections did he have? After all, Qin Shing didn't even have the ability to protect himself before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been abandoned by the Lin family and driven out of Hangzhou by Lin Songhao and other forces. His whereabouts were still unknown. In addition, the Lin family's affair involved a lot of people, which was different from Lin Songhao's affair. How did Qin Shing do it? It had only been 3 months since Qin Shing left Hangzhou. How could he suddenly become so powerful in 3 months? Yan Chaozong couldn't figure it out, so he murmured to himself, "It's impossible." "Feng," he said thoughtfully, "young master, I didn't believe it at the beginning, but it's the truth." Qin Shing went to the Lin family twice. The first time he went there, he directly took Lin Su away. However, he had a bad relationship with the Lin family. At that time, Lin Songhao tried to stop him and was directly beaten by Qin Shing. So that night, Lin Songhao sent someone to kill Qin Shing. Qin Shing luckily escaped. Then Lin Songhao got into trouble that night, and his whole force was uprooted. The next day, something happened to the Lin family. A series of things made the Lin family embarrassed. This morning, Qin Shing took Lin Su back to the Lin family. I don't know what they talked about. In the end, he took Lin Su and left Ningbo. What Feng He knew was the limit. As for the details, it was hard to know. After all, only the people involved knew it. After hearing the news, Yan Chaozong's face became more and more terrible. This time, Qin Shing came back prepared. However, Yan Chaozong couldn't figure out how he suddenly became so powerful. However, since Qin Shing had come back and made trouble for the Lin family, sooner or later, he would take revenge on him. No matter how Qin Shing suddenly became so powerful, Yan Chaozong had to prepare for a rainy day. At least, he needed to know where this enemy was and what his trump card was. Yan Chaozong said firmly, "Feng He, find out Qin Shing's whereabouts by all means. What's more, no matter how much money you spend or how many connections you use, I want to know the details of what happened in Ningbo." Feng He said in a low voice, "Young master, don't worry. I will do my best." After Feng He left, Yan Chaozong squinted his eyes and said, "Qin Shing, you can play tricks on me. You managed to escape twice, but there won't be a third time. This time, I'm going to exterminate you." Chapter 452. Chapter 451 of WAR. Didn't he? Since Qin Shing dared to go to Ningbo, he did not intend to avoid anyone. After all, he had made such a big noise, how could those people not know? However, even if they knew, he would take revenge on them sooner or later. He just had no time to deal with them now. If they were reckless and took the initiative to come to him, he would not mind to deal with them. Qin Shing was no longer the passive one who could only defend. Now he had the initiative to attack. Moreover, the strength of both sides had changed qualitatively. Now Qin Shing had the upper hand. Yan Chaozong already knew that Qin Shing was back, and he also knew that what happened in Ningbo was caused by Qin Shing. At this time, those people in Hangzhou were also investigating what happened in Ningbo, especially Third Master Wu, who had been living in seclusion on Mount Putuo for a long time. How could Third Master Wu not worry about such a big thing happening in front of him? In the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road, the old lady woke up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Qin Shing, who had nothing to do, chatted with the medical staff of the old foreign-style house and asked how his grandmother was doing. This was what he was most worried about at present. After all, he did not want his grandmother to leave him just after he met her. There were 2 pairs of medical staff who took care of the old lady every other day. They were all experienced nurses in Ruijin Hospital. The one on duty today was a young woman named Su Feng, who was in her 30s. Although she was not very beautiful, she took good care of herself. Most importantly, she had a good temper. Su Feng told Qin Shing that the old lady's blood pressure was relatively high, and her heart had some problems. Her organs were gradually failing. She had undergone 2 surgeries before, and her condition was under control. If her condition was good and did not deteriorate, it would not be a problem for her to live for a few more years. However, some things were unpredictable. His grandmother's condition was more serious than Qin Shing had expected. However, Qin Shing already had a plan in mind, and he was determined to stay in Shanghai in the future. In this way, he could spare more time to accompany his grandmother, and she would not always miss him. Family was the most important thing for Qin Shing now, especially in the case of his grandmother. Qin Shing did not want to have any regrets. After all, he had enough regrets in his life. After his grandmother woke up, Qin Shing chatted with her in the living room and massaged her shoulders. Seeing such a filial grandson, the old lady was very happy. She said with a smile, "Shing-er, when did you leave?" "Not long after you took a nap. She left because she had something to attend to. But we've already exchanged contact information. I'll show her around later," Qin Shing said faintly. The old lady nodded silently and said, "This girl is Old Song's favorite. You have to take good care of her for me. If it weren't for the fact that you already have a girlfriend, I would really want to matchmake you two. It would be a wonderful story for the 2 families." Upon hearing his grandmother's words, Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He replied, "Grandma, don't try to matchmake me. How can I be a good match for Ruyu?" The old lady said unhappily, "What are you talking about? Our Shing-er doesn't deserve a girl from that family? You should be happy to marry our Shing-er." In the eyes of the elders, their children and grandchildren were always the most outstanding. Of course, it was the same for the old mistress. With the family backgrounds of the Zhu family and the Qin family, no one in Siju City dared to say that Qin Shing did not deserve their daughter. Qin Shing chatted with the old lady for a while. It was already past 5 o'clock. Chang Baji was waiting for him at the door. Qin Shing then said goodbye to the old lady and left. The old lady was somewhat unhappy and insisted that Qin Shing would not leave until after dinner. Qin Shing said that he had an appointment with his small aunt and the others to eat outside, and the old lady let him go. In the Shermao Riverside Garden, Song Chu and Tan Jing had already helped Lin Su choose the clothes for dinner tonight. In the end, they went to the Guojin Center. However, it only took them an hour to finish the task. After all, Lin Su was born beautiful and looked beautiful in everything she wore. "Su, you two have been together for such a long time. Isn't it just meeting the parents? What are you worried about? Besides, you are so beautiful. Their family will definitely be very satisfied." Seeing Lin Su fidgeting, Song Chu felt a little funny. When did Lin Su become like this? It seemed that this was true love. Tan Jing, who was sitting next to Lin Su, also echoed, "That's right. Don't worry and go boldly. Nothing will happen." Lin Su sighed and said, "If those things didn't happen in the past, I wouldn't be so worried. It's just that their family knows what our family did to Qin Shing in the past, so I'm a little scared." Song Chu said thoughtfully, "You're right. If they really knew, which family's elders wouldn't feel a little resentful? However, it really didn't occur to us that Qin Shing was actually a hidden super-rich second generation. In the past, we all thought that Qin Shing didn't deserve you. Who could have expected that the plot would be reversed now? Su, I really admire your taste. Tan Jing and I are too far apart. But I don't understand why Qin Shing didn't tell you these things before. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a thing." Lin Su smiled gently and said, "There are some things you don't understand. Life is full of adventures. Maybe even he didn't expect it." "Su, what on earth did Qin Shing's family do?" "Both Jing and I know what happened in Ningbo. Let's not talk about what happened in your family first. What happened to Lin Songhao is already shocking enough, Song Chu said with interest. Tan Jing was very dissatisfied with Song Chu's question. She snorted and said, Song Chu, why do you ask about these things? As long as Qin Xing treats Susu well, it's fine. Now they finally have a happy ending. Lin Su said casually, actually, I don't know either. But maybe I will know in the future. When these women were chatting, Qin Xing opened the door and walked in. Seeing that Song Chu and Tan Jing were also there, he was somewhat surprised. Qin Xing was not dissatisfied with Lin Su's two best friends. He could understand what had happened in the past. After all, they did it for Lin Su's good. They hoped that Lin Su could find a man who matched her family background and deserved her. After entering the door, Qin Xing smiled and greeted them as he said, Hey, two beautiful women are also here. No matter what Song Chu's attitude towards Qin Xing used to be, it had completely changed since that day. She smiled and joked, Qin Xing, handsome Qin, you've taken Susu away for so long, but you haven't treated us to a meal yet. Qin Xing said casually, Ha ha ha, these are all small things. I don't know when you two are free. You can decide the time and place. I'm only responsible for paying. Lin Su has just returned to Shanghai. She needs you to take care of her in the future. Song Chu took the opportunity and said, Then we have to make a big deal out of you. We can't let you take advantage of us. Tan Jing frowned slightly. Feeling that it was almost time, she stood up and said, Song Chu, it's time for us to go. Don't disturb the loving couple. Song Chu was very sensible and said, Susu, then we'll go first. Let's meet again later. Lin Su smiled and nodded. Then she and Qin Xing saw them out. After returning to the living room, Qin Xing stared at Lin Su, who was dressed up carefully in front of him. He smiled and said, Wife, why do I feel that you suddenly become much more beautiful than a few days ago? Really? Lin Su pretended to be confused. Of course, she would not tell Qin Xing that for tonight's dinner, she specially asked Song Chu and Tan Jing to accompany her to buy clothes in the Guojing Center. Of course, Qin Xing knew what was going on. Obviously, Lin Su attached great importance to tonight's party. He said playfully, No? It was almost 6 o'clock. They did not waste any time and then went out to the restaurant that small aunt had booked. It was the restaurant on Dongdemon Road that Qin Xing had been to some time ago. After all, both the environment and the food there were good, and they were quite familiar with it. At this time, except for Qin Xing and Lin Su, the others had already arrived. Qin Ran and Xue Qinyan were sitting on the left side of Zhu Qingwen, and there were 2 seats on the right side, which were obviously reserved for Qin Xing and Lin Su. Opposite them were her daughter and son, who were also Qin Xing's cousin and younger cousin. At this time, everyone was laughing and chatting. Of course, the topic was Qin Xing and Lin Su. They were already familiar with Qin Xing, but Zhu Qingwen and the others were more curious about Qin Xing's girlfriend whom they had not met yet. Mom, do you think my cousin's girlfriend is good? Or, can you introduce him to another girlfriend? Zhu Jiao said casually. He did not say some words out loud, but others should be able to understand. After all, Qin Xing used to be ordinary, and his girlfriend was naturally not good. But now his identity was different, and ordinary women were definitely not good enough for him. Even if he liked them, the Zhu and Qin families might not be satisfied. Zhu Yi said with a smile, Silly brother, do you need to say this? What do you think our mom wants to do with this banquet? It's to check on your cousin. If he can't even pass our mom's test, he will not be able to meet grandma and uncle. Oh, I see. Zhu Jiao nodded silently. Zhu Qingwen, who was elegant and graceful, smiled and said, Don't make wild guesses. Xing Er's girlfriend won't let you down. If she didn't deserve Xing Er, Ran wouldn't have agreed to let me meet her. Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi looked at each other. It seemed that their thinking was too simple. Qin Ran smiled faintly and said, Although I know something, I don't know much about Lin Su. Qin Yan, on the other hand, has more contact with Lin Su, and they should be very familiar with each other. Xue Qinyan, of course, knew why she was invited to this family banquet. It was because she was familiar with Qin Sheng and Lin Su, and this could ease the atmosphere and not make Lin Su feel too embarrassed. Xue Qinyan thought for a few seconds and replied, apart from their family background, Qin Sheng and Lin Su should be the golden boy and jade girl in everyone's eyes. But I think that love should not only be based on these things, but also the relationship between them. I know how difficult it is for Qin Sheng and Lin Su to get to where they are today. They have experienced a lot of setbacks and tribulations. Qin Sheng paid a lot, and Lin Su also gave up a lot. But they both persisted so they could get to where they are today. Although Lin Su's family background is not as good as Qin Sheng's, if we only talk about family background, when Lin Su chose Qin Sheng at that time, the two of them were worlds apart. Everyone was against it. Everyone felt that Qin Sheng did not deserve Lin Su. However, Lin Su persisted without any hesitation and never regretted it. This is the most rare and valuable thing about Lin Su. After hearing Xue Qingyan's words, Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi finally understood why their mother wanted to meet Qin Sheng's girlfriend. It seemed that their mother knew all these things. At this time, Qin Ran also said, "This is exactly what I admire about Lin Su. In these years, Qin Sheng has suffered a lot and experienced a lot, but Lin Su has never given up on him. She has been standing firmly behind him. She gave up the whole world for him, so I think other things are not important anymore." After hearing that, Zhu Jiao couldn't help but say, "I didn't expect that the love story of my cousin and his wife would be so complicated. I really want to meet her." Chapter 453. Gradually uncovered. Qin Ran did not hide much about Qin Sheng and Lin Su. She told her small aunt almost everything. Therefore, when Qin Sheng went to Ningbo, her small aunt helped him. Otherwise, things would not go so smoothly. After all, her small aunt loved her nephew dearly. Therefore, Zhu Qingwen was not dissatisfied with Lin Su. Although the Lin family had done a lot of infuriating things to Qin Sheng, it had nothing to do with Lin Su. It was just that the Lin family looked down on Qin Sheng. On the contrary, Zhu Qingwen appreciated Lin Su's character. As Xue Qingyan said, what Lin Su had done for Qin Sheng was rare and precious in today's impetuous society. Qin Ran stood up and went out to meet Qin Sheng and Lin Su. The people in the box continued to chat. Zhu Jiao said happily, "I wanted to introduce some girlfriends to my cousin, but now it seems that I don't need to." "Mom, I guess you also think so, right?" Zhu Qingwen stared at her son and said, "Behave yourself. Don't be a bad influence on your cousin. Don't think that I don't know what you have done outside. Behave yourself in the future. If your father knows about it, you know the consequences." Zhu Jiao muttered in a low voice, "What can happen to me? He just has a few girlfriends. He didn't rape or kill anyone. Isn't it normal for a man to be a playboy?" Zhu Yi understood what her mother was thinking about. She said lightly, "Mom, since my cousin and his girlfriend are so close to each other and they have grown up, why don't we ask them when they plan to get married? In this way, my aunt in heaven will be completely relieved." Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully, "I want Xing to get married earlier, but I don't know what he wants. Your uncle is also very important." She nodded silently and said, "Then I'll ask him first." Xue Qingyan did not say anything. This was other people's family business. As an outsider, she did not need to worry about it. She just felt inexplicably disappointed when she heard that Qin Sheng was going to get married. Qin Ran met Qin Sheng and Lin Su in the hall downstairs, who had just walked in. Lin Su held Qin Sheng's arm and walked forward unhurriedly. It was obvious that Lin Su had dressed up meticulously. This outfit matched her temperament very well. It could be seen that Lin Su attached great importance to this family banquet. No matter who saw them, they would probably say that they were a perfect match, and that they were a perfect match. As a result, Qin Ran became less and less hopeful about that matter. It was really difficult to make a choice. However, as long as Qin Sheng liked it, everything else did not matter. Sister, have small aunt and the others arrived? Qin Sheng asked with a smile. Qin Ran smiled happily and said, You are all here. We are just waiting for you. Sister, I'm sorry. I was delayed by something. Sorry to keep you waiting. Lin Su thought that they were late. After all, it was the first time for them to meet the parent. It was somewhat impolite to be late, so she deliberately took the responsibility. Qin Ran walked over and held Lin Su's arm. She laughed and said, Su, we are family. You don't have to be so polite. It must be that Qin Sheng came back late from his grandmother's place. No matter what kind of woman Qin Sheng would marry in the future, Qin Ran would know how to get along with her, unless she was an unruly, headstrong, and unreasonable woman. However, she believed that Qin Sheng would definitely not like such a woman. However, these were all in the future. After all, Qin Sheng already had Lin Su, who could satisfy anyone. The two women walked in the front, talking and laughing. Qin Sheng followed behind them happily. He was not the star today, but Lin Su. There were some things that Qin Sheng did not know, so he was more or less unsure. What if small aunt was not satisfied with Lin Su? If it were in the past, Qin Sheng would not have worried about these things at all. However, he was not alone now. When Qin Ran led Lin Su into the box, everyone in the box stood up and looked at Qin Ran up and down with a smile. Zhu Qingwen smiled with satisfaction. Although it was the first time they met, Zhu Qingwen could not find anything wrong with Lin Su's temperament and appearance. Zhu Jiao opened his eyes wide. Although he had been mentally prepared, it was still beyond his expectation. He did not expect that his cousin's girlfriend would be so beautiful and temperament, which could not be compared with those girlfriends he had had before. He could not help but secretly give his cousin a thumbs up. Zhu Yi was also very shocked. She just thought that Qin Sheng's girlfriend would not be too outstanding based on his previous status. Other people said that just to protect Qin Sheng. Now she overturned these thoughts and became more and more curious about her cousin. Lin Su had been through many big scenes. Although she was a little nervous before they met, when she walked into the box, she returned to her previous temperament and could face everyone present calmly. Lin Su had been in a lot of big scenes. Although she was a little nervous before they met, when she walked into the box, she returned to her previous temperament and could face everyone present calmly. Lin Su did not make the decision to call her small aunt, which would make people feel that she was a little presumptuous. She just smiled and nodded. Hello, Auntie. Qin Ran then introduced Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi. Lin Su just smiled and nodded to greet them. She was not nervous at all and was very calm. When Xue Qinyan came, Xue Qinyan smiled and said, Lin Su, long time no see. Sister Qinyan, I didn't expect to see you here. I haven't seen you for a long time. I thought you were in Hangzhou, Lin Su said very politely. Xue Qinyan replied in a low voice, I have been in Shanghai all the time. I only go back to Hangzhou when I have something to do. Now that you are back in Shanghai, we can meet often in the future. As the only elder present, Zhu Qingwen controlled the atmosphere of this family banquet. She was in a good mood and said, Don't stand there, let's sit down and talk. Zhu Qingwen took the initiative to invite Lin Su to sit next to her, while Qin Sheng sat next to Zhu Jiao. Before he sat down, Zhu Jiao whispered in his ear, Cousin, I didn't know that you are a master of picking up girls. Where did you get such a beautiful sister-in-law? I will teach you some experience in the future. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This is called personal charm. You can't learn it. Zhu Jiao was stunned by Qin Sheng's unconventional moves, and he even took advantage of the situation. Then, Zhu Jiao burst out laughing. Zhu Qingwen frowned and said, Jiao, what are you whispering about? Zhu Jiao hurriedly said, Mom, nothing. Cousin told a joke. This counterattack was very beautiful. It had to be said that Zhu Jiao was very quick-witted. Qin Xing suffered a loss and did not bother to pay attention to him. There was only one guest present today, and that was Lin Su. Zhu Qingwen smiled and said, Lin Su, I just ordered a few dishes casually. You can see if there is anything you like. We are all family here. Don't be shy. Lin Su said politely, Auntie, I am the same as Qin Xing. I don't have any requirements for food. You can arrange whatever you want. Zhu Qingwen did not insist on such a small matter. Then she called the waiter and asked them to serve the dishes according to the pre-ordered dishes. The atmosphere was a little cold at the beginning. Everyone wanted to take care of Lin Su's mood, but did not know where to start. Zhu Qingwen took the lead and said, Lin Su, I heard from Qinyan that you used to work in Shanghai. Yes, Auntie, I used to work in Shanghai. Later I met Qin Sheng and left Shanghai, Lin Su said truthfully. Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully, Then it's really not easy for you. You must have suffered a lot with our Xing. Did he bully you? If he did, remember to tell me so that I can teach him a lesson for you. Lin Su looked back at Qin Sheng and said sincerely, Auntie, Qin Sheng is very good to me. I am the one who bullied him. It is my best luck to meet him in this life. After going through so many ups and downs, Lin Su firmly believed that the choice she made at that time was the most correct one. Qin Sheng was the one who accompanied her to walk the other half of the long road of life. Zhu Qingwen felt very comfortable when she heard Qin Sheng's words. Who didn't want others to say good things about their children? Although Qin Sheng was not her biological son, Zhu Qingwen had treated Qin Ran and Qin Sheng as her own children ever since her sister had passed away in an accident. From her attitude towards Qin Ran, one could tell that she had feelings for these two children. It was just that she had been separated from Qin Sheng for so many years. Zhu Qingwen said casually, Lin Su, don't spoil him. I can't guarantee that he's overjoyed. I don't think he's good enough for you. Her words made Lin Su a little nervous. She was worried that Zhu Qingwen's words had hidden meanings. After all, many people used to think that they were not a good match. So Lin Su said, Auntie, in the eyes of two people, no one is not a good match. As long as they like each other, everything else is not important. Zhu Qingwen nodded with a smile and said, What a sensible child. At this time, the waiter began to serve the dishes. Zhu Qingwen could not keep talking alone, so she looked at Xue Qinyan. Xue Qinyan immediately took over the topic. At this time, Zhu Jiao also asked Qin Sheng why he went to Ningbo. He said that he had many friends in Ningbo. If he had known earlier, he would have asked them to entertain him. Qin Ran said with a smile, Your cousin-in-law is from Ningbo. You don't need to make arrangements for her. Lin Su did not stay silent. She occasionally said a few words, but paid more attention to Qin Sheng's small aunt, Zhu Qingwen. She always felt that she had seen Zhu Qingwen somewhere, but she could not remember where. After all, she had been away from Shanghai for some time. Just when Zhu Qingwen lowered her head to look at her phone, Lin Su suddenly remembered who she was. She could not help but be stunned. It turned out that she was Qin Sheng's small aunt. What Lin Su happened to know was that her husband had just been promoted before the new year, and now he was the leader of this city. Finally, Lin Su gradually unveiled the mystery behind Qin Sheng. The reason why Lin Su suddenly recognized Zhu Qingwen was that when she was in Shanghai, Zhu Qingwen had been invited to the charity banquet that attracted the whole city. It was a big shot of their charity foundation who had invited Zhu Qingwen. At that time, Zhu Qingwen was a more important VIP, so they paid more attention to her. Chapter 454. Chapter 453 Death Half a Year. Recommending a book, Lee Salted Fishes, Opening a Clinic to Cultivate to Immortality. Many people must have read Salted Fish's other books. This time, it's still a familiar pace. I hope everyone can support it. When they were in Ningbo, Qin Sheng had told Lin Su some things casually. For example, there was a grandfather who used to be a high-ranking leader but had passed away many years ago, a rich but mysterious local tyrant boss, an uncle who was a general with 3 stars on his shoulder, a young uncle who had a bright future in Shanghai, and so on. However, Qin Sheng never told her the specific identity of these people. After all, the information he told her was too vague. Lin Su could not guess who they were, let alone know their specific identity. However, today, when she recognized Qin Sheng's aunt, the identity of these people became clear instantly. This middle-aged woman with extraordinary temperament was Qin Sheng's aunt. Naturally, Qin Sheng's uncle was the big shot who had just taken charge of the municipal government. Qin Sheng's aunt's surname was Zhu. With Qin Sheng's uncle digging, the identity of Qin Sheng's grandfather was self-evident. Then, she knew who Qin Sheng's uncle was. After sorting out the clues, Lin Su also knew the specific identity of the big shots that Qin Sheng had mentioned previously. She also understood how prominent Qin Sheng's background was. She also knew why Qin Sheng was able to mobilize so many resources when he was in Ningbo. However, the only one who did not know was Qin Sheng's father. After all, these people did not have much contact with Qin Sheng's father. Lin Su could not guess it in a short time. No one noticed the subtle change in Lin Su's expression and eyes. Although she was already prepared, she was still a little shocked after knowing the identity of these people. When she first met Qin Sheng, he was just an ordinary man without any prominent background. However, today, Qin Sheng was already standing at the top of the pyramid in terms of background. This kind of difference was really like heaven and earth. No one dared to think like this even if they used their imagination. Lin Su, what are you thinking about? Why don't you eat? Zhu Qingwen noticed the confusion in Lin Su's eyes and asked with a smile. Lin Su came back to her senses and said, Auntie, I suddenly remembered that I met you in Shanghai before. Oh, when? Why don't I remember? Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully. She was just responding politely. In fact, she often participated in academic or charitable activities. It was not surprising that Lin Su had seen her before. Moreover, she was a professor at Fudan University and had taught many students. Lin Su answered honestly, in the autumn of the year before last, the charity foundation that uncle he was in charge of held a charity dinner at Yuerong Manor. You also attended that time. I happened to be one of the founders of that charity foundation, so I met you. Lin Su said, 2 years ago, the charity foundation that uncle he was in charge, Yuerong Manor. You were there. I was the founder of the foundation, so I met you. Oh, I remember. Qingwen. But year before, I Qingwen year ago, I 6 Qin year ago. San City Wild Day. Later, a Qing and I Qing Yun City. What was more interesting was that all of them were in the financial investment industry, so the conversation between them was more interesting. In addition, Zhu Qingwen had a good understanding of the economic situation and the development of the industry, so the topics of these women were more in-depth. What was more interesting was that they were all in the financial industry. Zhu Qingwen was quite familiar with the economic situation and the development of the industry. Therefore, these women talked about more in-depth topics. Qin Sheng just talked with Zhu Jiao. He thought that he would take Song Ryu around in Shanghai these days. Compared with those things he knew, Zhu Jiao, a rich playboy in Shanghai, knew more. Qin Sheng looked like he had nothing to live for. Xue Qingyan said half-jokingly, Finally, you're happy. Qin Sheng sighed and said, Kind of. I hope we can live in peace in the future. At this time, Zhu Qingwen suddenly brought up the original topic. Lin Su, you and Xing have been together for so long and experienced so many ups and downs. When are you going to get married? Xing Er's mother, my sister, passed away many years ago, but I, as your aunt, will definitely take care of you. Everyone subconsciously looked at Lin Su, waiting for her answer. Presumably, Lin Su's answer would not disappoint them. After all, their identities had changed. Only Qin Ran was a little nervous. If her aunt urged Qin Sheng to marry Lin Su, her father might not agree. Currently, her father hoped that Qin Sheng would choose Song Ruyu, and he was actively creating conditions. However, he didn't want to ruin the fragile relationship between father and son, so he didn't put pressure on Qin Sheng. Lin Su blushed. She didn't know whether it was because she drank some red wine or because she was embarrassed. She lowered her head slightly and looked at Qin Sheng. "Auntie, I think we can do it any time. It depends on what Qin Sheng thinks." Marriage, for any woman, was the most anticipated and beautiful moment in life. Lin Su was not exaggerating. She had known Qin Sheng for several years, and the two of them had been together for a year and a half. They had experienced all that they needed to go through, or more than others. Maybe it was because they were at the right age. Her friends who were supposed to get married were all married, and those who were not married were also preparing for it. How could Lin Su not think about it? However, she had never taken the initiative to mention it to Qin Sheng. After all, she cared more about Qin Sheng's opinion and didn't want to give him too much pressure. Especially in the past, she knew that Qin Sheng had a lot of things in his heart. For example, he wanted to work hard and make a name for himself. After he made a career, he would think about marriage. There were some things that Qin Sheng did not say, but Lin Su knew clearly in her heart. For example, he wanted to prove himself, and he wanted to prove that her choice was not wrong. Also, he hoped to give her a happy and comfortable life, and then he would talk about this matter. Men had men's ideas, and women had women's ideas. For Lin Su, as long as she could go on with Qin Sheng, it was enough. If she had to consider these external conditions, she wouldn't have chosen Qin Sheng at that time. It was just that she cared about Qin Sheng's opinion. Hearing Lin Su's words, everyone understood what Lin Su was thinking. Zhu Yi couldn't help but say, "Cousin, since Su has said so, it's time for you to say something." Zhu Jiao also joined in the fun. "Cousin, when will you get married? I'm going to be your best man. I'm so handsome, I won't embarrass you." Qin Ran looked at Qin Sheng calmly. Of course, she hoped that Qin Sheng could get married as soon as possible. After all, he was her only brother. Xue Qingyin's eyes were full of disappointment, but she also hoped that lovers would get married. Zhu Qingwen said, "Xing what do you think?" "Small aunt, since the moment I met Lin Su, I have been waiting for the day to marry her. So it's only a matter of time. But I want to think about it after I finish some things." Qin Sheng didn't hide anything and said honestly. Lin Su could understand what Qin Sheng said, but she was a little disappointed. Qin Ran also relaxed a little, and the others didn't think much of it. But at this time, Qin Sheng said, "Well, at least in the second half of the year." Qin Sheng told her the specific time. Lin Su's face instantly showed a smile, and her eyes were full of tenderness and expectation. This made Qin Ran nervous. In other words, there was only half a year left. She would accept whatever choice Qin Sheng made in half a year. Hearing this, Zhu Qingwen smiled brightly and said happily, "Oh, then I need to prepare in advance. This is the most important thing in our family this year. We must do it well." After talking about this, the dinner came to an end. Qin Sheng and Lin Su just returned to Shanghai today, so they didn't arrange any follow-up activities. After all, they were troubled by the things in Ningbo. On the way back to Shermao Riviera Garden, Lin Su was in a good mood because the atmosphere of this family dinner was not as tense as she had imagined. Nothing she had expected happened, which made her completely relieved. She could tell that Qin Sheng's family was very satisfied with her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked about marriage. Similarly, Qin Sheng's family was easy to get along with, which made her less worried. After returning to Shermao Riviera Garden, Qin Sheng lay on the sofa and said casually, "Honey, this will be our home in Shanghai from now on. Tomorrow I will go shopping with you and decorate our home beautifully." Lin Su found it funny and said, "Actually, there is nothing to buy. I have prepared everything." Although Lin Su had only met her sister twice, she felt that Qin Sheng's sister was not simple. She was a very smart woman. She should get along well with her in the future. "As a sister, I love my brother the most. From now on, you can live a happy life with me," Qin Sheng said with a smile. He felt proud of himself. After all, not many people cared about him in the past. But now, he was the treasure of both the Zhu and Qin families. Of course, he would love Lin Su because of her. Lin Su stared at him and said angrily, "Show off." Qin Sheng stood up, pulled Lin Su into his arms, and threatened her with a smirk. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Lin Su said disapprovingly. Qin Sheng turned around and pressed Lin Su on the sofa. He showed a wretched smile and said, "It seems that as your husband, I have to prepare for domestic discipline." Lin Su realized what Qin Sheng was going to do. She hurriedly begged for mercy. "Honey, I was wrong. It's too late to say it now." Qin Sheng laughed unscrupulously. After saying this, Qin Sheng could not wait to kiss Lin Su's seductive lip. Lin Su did not have time to react and had already fallen in. Then she responded to Qin Sheng's request tenderly. They were already an old couple, so they were familiar with these things between men and women. Not long after, the room was filled with the sound of nature. When the morning sun shone on Qin Sheng's face, Lin Su was no longer by his side. Last night's craziness lasted until the second half of the night. Qin Sheng was really exhausted. But what he gained was that Lin Su was not as reserved as before. But he still needed to train her slowly. Lin Su promised Qin Ran yesterday that she would report to the company today. Of course, she would not forget these things. After dinner, she talked with Qin Ran and left her specific contact information. Now she was already on the way to work. Although Chang Baji had parked the car in the underground garage after sending them back last night, Lin Su did not drive or take a taxi on her first day of work. She took the bus to the company like she used to in Shanghai. She was familiar with the public transportation in Lujiazui. The company's address was in the World Financial Center. When she arrived at the first floor of the World Financial Center, Lin Su dialed her sister's number. Qin Ran had already arrived at the company. She asked Lin Su to wait downstairs, and she would send someone to pick her up. It did not take long for Qin Ran's secretary to find Lin Su. After greeting her, she led Lin Su into the World Financial Center. Then they took the elevator straight to the floor where the company was located. The Qin family's company in Shanghai occupied a whole 3 floors of the World Financial Center. It could be seen that the scale of the company was not small. Moreover, it was only a company in Shanghai. Compared to the headquarters on Jiangguimen Y Street in Beijing, it was not even worth mentioning. When Lin Su came out of the elevator, she naturally saw the name of the company. This name could be said to be known by everyone in the capital circle in China. Subconsciously, Qin Ran thought of the rumors about this company and directly thought of the extremely mysterious Big Boss. Chapter 455. Qin Sheng had never intended to hide these things from her. Qin Sheng had never intended to hide these things. He was just afraid that if he told Lin Su everything, it would make Lin Su feel a little scared. Therefore, he gave Lin Su a heads-up at the beginning and only vaguely told her about these things. He knew that Lin Su would find out about these things sooner or later. She was so smart. Instead of telling her about these things proactively, it would be better for her to find them out slowly. Qin Sheng did not intend to hide these things from her, neither did Qin Ran. After all, she liked Lin Su a lot. Consequently, there was no need for her to hide these things. After all, the relationship between Qin Sheng and Lin Su was so strong that they did not need to consider these things. Moreover, they did not need to use other things to test Lin Su, which would only be superfluous. In fact, it was Wu Han who came downstairs to pick Lin Su up. Wu Han was now Lin Su's temporary secretary and assistant in Shanghai. It was somewhat a waste of Beauty Wu's talent. After all, she was an elite who had been in charge of projects in a top investment bank overseas. Wu Han did not have any opinion on this. It was just a temporary job. She would go to the headquarters in Beijing to work after she finished these things. Recently, the workload was indeed not heavy. She had to sort out all the projects that the company had invested in overseas, including the parties involved in the projects and the flow of funds, as well as evaluate the current value of the projects and the exit plan, and so on. Although Wu Han had worked in a top investment bank, she still felt that it was a little strenuous. However, Qin Ran had told Wu Han yesterday that she had hired another assistant to assist her in her work. In this way, her pressure could be reduced and the efficiency of their team could be improved. When Wu Han saw Lin Su, it did not occur to her that the assistant Qin Ran had hired was actually such a beautiful lady. Wu Han sighed with emotion and felt that she was not as good as Lin Su. However, what the capital circle needed was not a pretty face but real ability. This was also the source of Wu Han's confidence. Seeing that Lin Su was in a daze after getting off the elevator, Wu Han asked with a puzzled look, "What's wrong?" After Lin Su came to herself, she shook her head with a smile and said, "Nothing. I have not worked for some time. In the future, I will go back to this kind of familiar working environment. I feel a little emotional." Yesterday, when Lin Su asked Song Chu and Tan Jing to accompany her to the National Finance Center to buy clothes, she also bought 2 sets of professional attire for work. She knew that the financial industry had a strict dress code. After all, this was the top industry of the pyramid. Wu Han kindly reminded Lin Su, in that case, you have to be mentally prepared in advance. Recently, we have been fighting a tough battle. Basically, all the members of the team have to work overtime every day. You'd better be able to bear it. She was afraid that this beauty would not be able to bear it. However, she did not doubt Lin Su's strength. Otherwise, Sister Qin Ran would not have allowed her to join this team. Lin Su smiled faintly and said, "I'm used to such a life." Behind the glamour of every industry, there were unknown hardships. The financial industry seemed to be high class and envied by others, but the efforts and sacrifices they made were unimaginable to ordinary people. Of course, the returns of these sacrifices were huge. This was also the most direct motivation for them. After Wu Han led Lin Su into Qin Ran's office, Wu Han knocked on the door that was not closed a few times. After Qin Ran raised her head, she walked in slowly and said, "President Qin, Lin Su is here." Qin Ran stood up smilingly and said, "Su, I told you to rest for a few more days. However, you insisted on coming to work today. Don't tell on me later." Of course, Lin Su could understand what Qin Ran meant. Only Wu Han was confused. In the company, Lin Su did not call Qin Ran sister. Instead, she called her, "President Qin, it's better for you to start working as soon as possible." Qin Ran nodded silently. After that, she looked at Wu Han and said, "Okay. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony with you. Let me introduce you. This beauty is my temporary assistant. She is an elite from a top foreign investment bank. Originally, she was going to work as a general manager of a department in the headquarters in Beijing. However, I dragged her to stay in Shanghai temporarily. During this period of time, you will act as my left and right hands and help me sort out these projects in the shortest possible time." Lin Su said thoughtfully, "President Qin, what aspect should I be responsible for?" Qin Ran smiled and said, "You and Wu Han are both my assistants. Wu Han will tell you the specific work. If there is anything you don't understand, you can ask me directly." "Okay. In that case, we won't waste any more time. Wu Han, I'll leave Lin Su to you." Qin Ran's style in life was totally different from that in work. In life, Qin Ran was quiet, which made people feel very comfortable to get along with. However, in work, Qin Ran was completely a strong woman. She spoke straightforwardly and did things in a vigorous manner. After Wu Han left with Lin Su, Qin Ran continued to throw herself into the intense work. In the following days, she would be busy for 24 hours. For the Qin family, these things were really too important. Compared with her, the old man in Beijing was really working around the clock. That was because, if some things were not handled properly, they would probably become a bomb that would detonate the Qin family in the future. After all, in recent years, many tycoons of financial groups had collapsed because of some trivial matters. There were too many living examples. The Qin family dared not be careless. Both Qin Chang'an and Qin Ran had a premonition that a crisis was about to envelop the Qin family. It was the instinct of a big family to prepare for a rainy day and be vigilant in times of peace. Although Qin Sheng also felt that something was wrong, he was unable to help even if he wanted to. The only thing he could do was to take good care of himself and not to be a burden. After getting up, Qin Sheng tidied up the house and went to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. After that, he drove to the old lady's place for lunch. For now, accompanying his grandmother was the most important thing. Since the old lady knew that her grandson would come for lunch, she asked the kitchen to cook a few more dishes. For such a simple matter, the old lady even asked the housekeeper to call Qin Ran and ask her grandson what he liked. Qin Ran, who was in a meeting, could not help laughing. The old lady really spoiled Qin Sheng. More or less, Qin Ran was jealous of her. Only Qin Sheng and the old lady had lunch. The old lady's diet was specially prepared by the medical staff. They would not let her eat anything randomly. Therefore, all the dishes on the table were prepared for Qin Sheng. This kind of treatment made Qin Sheng somewhat flattered. In order to make his grandmother happy, Qin Sheng swept the dishes like a whirlwind sweeping away the scattered clouds. The old lady just stared at her grandson with a smile, and then unhurriedly picked food for her grandson. Usually, Qin Sheng could only eat 2 bowls of rice. Today, he ate 4 bowls of rice, and more than half of the dishes on the table were swept away. Was Qin Sheng not full? Of course. He just wanted to make his grandmother happy. So what if he was full? At worst, he could go back and run to exercise his digestion. If not, he could eat some digestive tablet. Sheng eat slowly. Why do you look like a reincarnated hungry ghost? The old lady could not help laughing and said, with a loving smile on her face. Qin Sheng replied without raising his head, "Grandma, these are all my favorite dishes. If I don't eat more, I will feel sorry for myself." The old lady smiled and said, Okay. Eat more if you like it. Then you can come to eat more in the future. I will ask them to cook more of your favorite dishes." Qin Sheng agreed readily. Before the classes for advanced studies in Tsinghua University started, Qin Sheng would stay in Shanghai to accompany his grandmother. Other things could be put aside. At noon, after his grandmother's lunch break, Qin Sheng left Sinan Road and went to Uncle Zhang's old foreign-style house on Middle Huaihai Road. Since the music academy had not officially started, Qin was not very busy recently. Most of the time, she stayed in the old foreign-style house, reading and practicing. She was a quiet woman, and it was fine as long as her life was peaceful. After Qin Sheng arrived, the old housekeeper welcomed him in happily. In the living room, Qin was playing the Chinese zither, which was Qin Sheng's favorite song. The fishing boat sings in the evening. Maybe because she was too familiar with Qin Sheng, or maybe because she did not want to talk to him, Qin did not stand up. She was still playing the Chinese zither calmly, immersed in her own spiritual world. Qin Sheng did not disturb Qin. The fragrant pu'er was boiling on the charcoal stove. Qin Sheng poured a cup for himself and then lay on the sofa, enjoying the comfortable sunshine on his body. Listening to the beautiful woman's music and tasting the superior pu'er, it was really comfortable. After the song ended, Qin stood up. She was not as cold as she used to be. It seemed that she had thought of the promise she had made with Qin Sheng last time. Her face was slightly red, but it was especially charming. Qing asked in a low voice, "Why are you here?" Qin Sheng crossed his legs and replied, "To see you. You will be my woman in the future. I have to treat you well." Qin Sheng said this deliberately to make fun of Qing. Qing glared at Qin Sheng, but there was some embarrassment in her eyes. She had already accepted her fate. Since she had made a promise to Qin Sheng, she would not go back on it. Her fate in the future had been determined. As long as she could repay Uncle Zhang's kindness, it would be enough. "I'm just kidding. I just dropped by to see you. You haven't called me for a whole day. How would I know if you are doing well or not? Uncle Jiang asked me to take care of you. I don't want to break my promise." Qin Sheng put away his playful look and said with a slightly serious tone. Qing replied calmly, "I am good, don't worry about me. Don't forget what you promised me." "Don't worry, how can I forget that? I have been busy recently. After I go back to Beijing in a few days, I will start to inquire about the news and make use of my connections," Qin Sheng said honestly. Qing thought that Qin Sheng had already started to take action, but she did not expect that she would have to wait for a while. She felt somewhat disappointed, but she did not say it out. After all, it was not that easy. As long as Qin Sheng could do it, she would have enough time to wait. Qin Sheng was very confused about Qing life. She did not have many friends and had never been in love. She almost stayed at home except for going to school. She was even more reluctant to go out. If she were an ordinary person, she would have been disabled long ago. Qin Sheng asked subconsciously, "Qing do you ever feel lonely when you are alone?" Qing took a sip of tea and said with some doubts, "No." Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Then you are really awesome. If I lived like you, I am afraid that I would have gone crazy long ago." Qing said thoughtfully, "Really? I drink tea, read books, play the zither, and take care of flowers every day. I live a very fulfilling life. Uncle said that as long as a person's spiritual world is fulfilling, he will not feel lonely," Qing said thoughtfully. Chapter 456. Chapter 455. Death different. Everyone had different pursuit. Some pursued the improvement of material life, while others pursued the satisfaction of the spiritual world. However, no matter how good the material life was, if the spiritual world could not keep up with the pace, one would lose himself sooner or later. This was what Qin Sheng was most worried about. From Shanghai to Hangzhou, as long as his steps were slightly bigger, Qin Sheng would tell himself to slow down, and then let himself settle down gradually, and finally continue to move forward. However, since he met his relatives in Tsingtao and learned all about his life experience, Qin Sheng was completely confused. This kind of gap was like building a tall building from flat ground without a good foundation. Later, Qin Sheng spent 3 months to accept these, but until now, he still felt that there was not much effect. During this period, Qin Sheng seemed to be very busy. He went to study in Tsingtao University, visited old friends of the Qin family during the New Year, went to Shanghai to reunite with his grandmother, and then went to Ningbo to take revenge, etc. However, Qin Sheng still felt very uneasy. This feeling was getting stronger and stronger recently. Qin Sheng did not know how to calm himself down. Therefore, hearing Qing words, Qin Sheng somewhat envied her. People with a full spiritual world would not be so tired, and they could live more freely and freely. Qing found that Qin Sheng was in a daze, so she frowned and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Qin Sheng came to his senses and said, "Nothing. I'm just thinking about what other good songs there are. It's rare for me to come here, so I should cultivate my mind. I wonder if I have a chance to listen to a song from a beauty again?" Qing had long been used to Qin Sheng's cynicism. She used to think that he was too frivolous, but later she thought that he was just a flirt. At least he did not take advantage of others when they were in trouble, so Qing began to treat Qin Sheng as a friend. As for that matter, she would talk about it later. Qing Er's spiritual world was simple and fulfilling. Apart from the matter of Jiang Xianbang, there were no other worries. Work was insignificant to her, not to mention that her work was something she liked. As for love, Qing Er had always let nature take its course and never thought too much about it. Qing Er did not refuse Qin Sheng's request. After hesitating for a while, she made up her mind and said, "I have nothing to do recently, so I composed a new song. Do you want to listen to it?" It was the first time for Qin Sheng to hear Qing Er play his own song. He nodded happily, then poured a cup of tea and sat cross-legged on the sofa, waiting to appreciate Qing Er's new song like an onlooker. After leaving Middle Huaihai Road, Qin Sheng and Lao Chang drove to Pudong Airport to pick up Hao Lei. Hao Lei could not stay in Xi'an anymore, so he called Qin Sheng and came to Shanghai. Young people? Who could stay idle? It was the beginning of the new year, and everyone was starting to get busy. He was somewhat flustered. Originally, Qin Sheng had said that they would meet up after he returned to Beijing. However, Hao Lei could not wait any longer. What's more, Chang Baji and Han Bing had already arrived in Shanghai. Since everyone was in Shanghai, Hao Lei couldn't wait to rush over. Qin Sheng did not say much. He would just let this guy have fun in Shanghai for a few days and then go back to Beijing with him. Next, he would arrange some things for him to do. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji saw Hao Lei coming out with a suitcase from afar. He seemed to be in a good mood, with a bright smile on his face. He walked over and gave Qin Sheng and Chang Baji a big hug. Then he said affectionately, "Lao Qin, Lao Chang, we are back to Shanghai again." Qin Sheng said with a smile, "How about you stand in the arrival hall and give a speech about going back to Shanghai?" "No need." Hao Lei smiled awkwardly. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "All right, let's go back to the city first." On the way back to Lujiazui, Hao Lei learned that Qin Sheng had gone to Ningbo to take revenge. He was so angry that he almost scolded Qin Sheng for not taking him with him. He really wanted to see how the Lin family, who used to be high and mighty, would lower their heads now. Qin Sheng said honestly, "I really didn't think of you at that time." Hao Lei said helplessly, "Lao Qin, how can you treat your friend like this? So you mean, let's go to Ningbo again?" Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. Hao Lei let out a long sigh and said, "Forget it. Just take it that I met the wrong person. If you dare to do this in the future, then we will break off our friendship." Qin Sheng didn't say anything. He knew that Hao Lei was just joking. They had been together for so many years, how could they quarrel over such a small thing? Looking back, after so many years, only Hao Lei could really go to the end. Qin Sheng suddenly asked without warning, "Su Qin went back to Xi'an?" Hearing this, Hao Lei was stunned. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, "You know all about it?" Qin Sheng sighed and said, "I went to Young Bar. She has transferred the bar. I heard from the manager there that she quit her job and went back to her hometown." "Well, I knew it before the Spring Festival. I also saw her, but she didn't let me tell you." "I didn't expect that you still know," Hao Lei said lightly. Qin Sheng didn't know what to say. It was good for Su Qin to let go of this relationship, but he still felt a little lost in his heart. After all, they had been together for so many years. Qin Sheng said sincerely, "Lao Qin, I have always regretted that you didn't go to the end. Thinking back to the time when you were in high school, you were the immortal couple that everyone envied. It's a pity. But now we are all adults, we have to let go of some things. I know you are somewhat reluctant to let go, but after all, you have Lin Su now. This is unfair to Su Qin. Since she has completely let go of this relationship, you should wish her happiness," Hao Lei said sincerely. Hao Lei knew the relationship between Qin Sheng and Su Qin better than anyone else. Now they were going farther and farther away, and were no longer on the same road. Qin Sheng said quietly, "I know. I wish her happiness. If there is a next life, I will make up for the regret in this life." First love was the most difficult emotion for everyone to give up. Whether it was Qin Sheng, who was nostalgic, or Xia Ding, who was a playboy, they might not remember how many women they had met in their lives, but they would definitely remember their first love. Because first love was the most beautiful, the purest, and the least materialistic emotion. But how many first love in this world ended up together? In the end, they just forgot each other in Jianghu. If you don't leave me, I will be with you in life and death. How many people can do that? Qin Sheng felt sorry for Su Qin. This was the most clear understanding he had during this period. In the past, he was too selfish and conceited. He only cared about his own ideas and ambitions, but did not care about Su Qin's feelings. If the current Qin Sheng was the Qin Sheng in the past, he believed that he would not miss Su Qin. After returning to Pudong, Qin Sheng sent Hao Lei back to the hotel. Chang Baji stayed in the nearest hotel to Shermao Riviera Garden. Hao Lei also stayed here. After all, Qin Sheng would go to Beijing in a few days. After finishing these things, it was already evening. Lin Su called and said that she would work overtime, so she would not come back for dinner at night. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. His sister was too inhumane. Lin Su just came to work today and she had to work overtime. In any case, she was one of us. In fact, it was not Qin Ran who asked to work overtime. It was Lin Su who took the initiative to stay. Because everyone was working overtime, it was not good for Lin Su to leave alone on the first day. Moreover, she already knew how difficult the work was this time. Therefore, Qin Sheng invited Xia Ding and Han Bing, who were all old acquaintances of Hao Lei. Hao Lei just returned to Shanghai today, so it could be regarded as a welcoming dinner for Hao Lei. The place for dinner was booked by Xia Ding. This little prince of Pudong was quite familiar with everything. However, Qin Sheng, Hao Lei and Chang Baji had arrived, but Xia Ding and Han Bing had not arrived yet. They could understand that they had nothing to do. Xia Ding and Han Bing still had company affairs to deal with. Hao Lei had nothing to do and asked, "Lao Qin, are you not afraid of being found out by Yan Chaozong in Shanghai?" "If I were afraid, I would not stay in Shanghai," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. Hao Lei asked curiously, "Then when are you going to deal with Yan Chaozong and those people in Hangzhou? I am angry when I think of what happened before. These people turned their backs on us. Don't worry. We will talk about it after dealing with other things." Qin Sheng had already planned it. He would do it step by step. But then he asked, "Where is Tang Shi?" Speaking of Tang Shi, Hao Lei had something to say. This guy was absolutely loyal, but he had never told Qin Sheng about it. At this time, he opened his mouth and said, "Lao Qin, you were right about Tang Shi." "What do you mean?" Qin Sheng asked confusedly. Hao Lei said slowly, "After we separated, I followed Tang Shi to his hometown for a while and finally returned to Xi'an. Tang Shi stayed in his hometown all the time. He certainly did not dare to go to Hangzhou anymore. He planned to find a job in other places after the Spring Festival. Unexpectedly, Third Master Wu found him before the Spring Festival and tortured him a lot. However, Tang Shi did not mention anything about us, including my going back to Xi'an. Fortunately, he was found later. The police arrived and saved his life. But he broke an arm and suffered some physical pain. Recently, he has been recuperating in the mountains with his relative." Hearing the last part, Qin Sheng's face was somewhat gloomy. During the last period in Hangzhou, Tang Shi helped him a lot, especially to keep an eye on the huge danger. So Qin Sheng could not let Tang Shi down. He said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, there is nothing to do in Shanghai these 2 days. I will go there in a few days. You bring someone to bring Tang Shi to Shanghai, and let him recuperate in Shanghai. I want to see who dares to hurt him." As for Third Master Wu, Qin Sheng held a grudge against him. Sooner or later, he would pay him back with interest. But his only concern was Yang Deng, which put Qin Sheng in a difficult position. Hao Lei agreed in a hurry. Okay, then I will go tomorrow. I will go early and come back early. Before they talked for a long time, Xia Ding came first. When he saw Hao Lei, he laughed and scolded, Hao Lei, you are still alive. You haven't called me for such a long time. I thought you had hung up. Hao Lei had been familiar with Xia Ding for a long time. He retorted, Can't you say something nice? Can't you say something nice? Do you think I am a nice person? My nice words are all for the beautiful girls. You are a rough man. You are not interested. Xia Ding shrugged and said. Hao Lei did not care about him. He was far inferior to Xia Ding in eloquence. At this time, Han Bing finally arrived. Hao Lei had not seen Han Bing for a long time. So when he saw her coming in, the look in his eyes changed instantly. Chapter 457. Chapter 456. What did a man look like when he looked at the woman he liked? Some said that there was gentleness in his eyes, some said that there was time in his eyes, some said that there was light in his eyes, some said that there was nothing in the world in his eyes, only her. Qin Sheng did not know what other people looked like, but every time he looked at her affectionately, he could imagine all the things that would happen between him and this woman in the future. So Qin Sheng only knew at this moment that Hao Lei liked Han Bing, and it was not just a day or two. This made Qin Sheng a little overwhelmed. After all, everyone knew that Han Bing liked him, and there were many stories between them. If Hao Lei really liked Han Bing, Qin Sheng, who was stuck in the middle, would be in a difficult position. It was not that Qin Sheng was not willing to matchmake this marriage, but if Han Bing knew, Qin Sheng did not know what she would do. If they could not even be friends, it would be a bit too tragic. Moreover, Qin Sheng also knew that with Hao Lei's temper, he was destined to bury this relationship deep in his heart, just like how he used to like Su Qin. Why? Because to Hao Lei, nothing was more important than him as a friend. Hao Lei would not make things difficult for him. Qin Sheng sighed helplessly, thinking that this was really a troublesome thing. If it was not handled properly, there would be repercussions. But if Hao Lei and Han Bing were really together, it was definitely a good thing. It seemed that he had to think of a way. He should first ask Hao Lei, and then think about what Han Bing meant. Also, when he was with Han Bing in the future, Qin Sheng had to keep a distance. He had to take care of Hao Lei's feelings. After Han Bing came over, Xia Ding, who was always sweet talker, teased, Beauty Han, I haven't seen you for a few days. You have become even more beautiful. Why can't I meet a girlfriend like you? Han Bing directly retorted, If you meet a girl like her, how unlucky would that girl be? Han Bing was still the Han Bing from before. Her words made everyone instantly happy. Xia Ding looked embarrassed. It was really a cold but he was not angry. After all, he was already familiar with Han Bing, and they would bicker when they had nothing to do. Brother Lei, welcome back to Shanghai. I haven't seen you for a few months. I've missed you so much. Han Bing never acted pretentiously in front of people she was familiar with. She walked over and gave Hao Lei a hug. This made Hao Lei so happy that he would probably wake up laughing tonight. Han Bing had met the others before, so she just smiled and greeted them. In the end, she sat next to Qin Sheng, took the initiative to hold his arm and said, I thought you were drunk in Lin Su's gentle hometown in Ningbo and were unwilling to go back to Shanghai. Sit down, Qin Sheng said impatiently. Then, he broke free from Han Bing's arm, picked up the menu on the table and said, Go ahead and order, everyone is waiting for you. Han Bing definitely could not guess Qin Sheng's other intentions. She took the menu and let him off. Not long after, she complained, Xia Ding, what kind of restaurant did you choose? None of them are to my liking. Xia Ding said helplessly, Miss Han is Han. If you don't like, I can't eat. Forget it, I'm on a diet, I don't want to eat, Han Bing said casually. Hao Lei said very seriously, You are already so thin, why do you still want to lose weight? The figure is important, but the body is more important. Han Bing took off her coat. She was wearing a tight t-shirt inside. Her hot-blooded figure could be seen clearly. She said disapprovingly, "Come on, you men are just saying it." "I'm not just saying it," Hao Lei said in a very low voice, but his voice was drowned out by the other people's voices. This could be considered the small team of 5 that they had when they were in Shanghai. Today, they finally gathered in Shanghai again. Looking back, they felt that things were the same, but the people had changed. No one was in the mood to be sad. After all, the final result was not unsatisfactory. They drank, joked, and listened to Xia Ding bragging, and talked about his recent experience with girls. Time passed slowly, and they were a little dizzy. In the end, everyone took a taxi back. Qin Xing intentionally let Hao Lei send Han Bing home first. He, Xia Ding, and Lao Chang all lived nearby, so it was on the way. Only then did Xia Ding know that Qin Xing would live in the Binjiang World Trade Garden in the future. It was really close, they could visit at any time. When Qin Xing came back, Lin Su had already taken a shower and was lying on the bed. She was holding the computer and continued to read the company's financial documents. Lin Su had just started work today, but she quickly returned to her previous state. She was really a career woman, more or less similar to Qin Ran. "Did you drink too much?" Lin Su put down her computer and took the initiative to walk over to support Qin Xing when she saw him coming in with the smell of alcohol. Qin Xing had already told Lin Su that Hao Lei had just arrived in Shanghai today, and he would meet Xia Ding and the others in the evening. Qin Xing shook his head and said, "No, we only drank a little. I'll go get you some honey water to sober up, it's better for your stomach," Lin Su said with concern. Qin Xing pulled Lin Su and said, "No need, I didn't drink much. But wife, you've just started work today and you're already working so hard. The company is owned by our family, why do you work so hard? If you get tired, I'll be the one who will feel sorry for you." "No, I have to call my sister later, she won't feel sorry for me, she will feel sorry for you." Lin Su pulled Qin Xing and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Stop it, it's not easy for my sister. You don't know how busy she is, you should feel sorry for her." Qin Xing thought of his speculation some time ago and asked subconsciously, "Wife, you've already started work today, have you heard anything? What happened to the company?" "I'm not sure about this, but according to my current job, the company is evaluating the asset value of its companies and projects, so the next step might be to sell them," Lin Su said thoughtfully. This was also her speculation. "So you mean that the company might have a problem with the capital chain?" Qin Xing asked with a frown. Lin Su said honestly, "I'm worried that it might be more terrible than the capital chain problem, but this is just my speculation, maybe the company wants to further integrate its companies." Qin Xing didn't ask more, after all, Lin Su wouldn't know too much. It seemed that when he returned to Beijing in a few days, he had to find out some information from the side. Although he had just returned to the Qin family, he was still a member of the Qin family, he had to help out more or less, he couldn't let his sister work so hard every day. As Lin Su said, he should feel sorry for his sister. Of course, there were still some words that Qin Xing didn't want to say, no matter what the old man had done to him, the old man was his biological father. The old man was already old, it was time for him to take over the flag of his father's generation. Thinking of this, Qin Xing suddenly felt less confused recently, as if he had found his own direction. It was another new day. This time Qin Xing got up earlier than Lin Su. He made breakfast for his wife, watched her finish breakfast, and then watched her go to work. Qin Xing's task today was to accompany Song Ryu. He didn't know how many days this lady would stay in Shanghai. On the way back to Riviera Garden last night, Song Ryu called him and told him that she had finished her work. They agreed to meet at the Shanghai Center building, which had been open for operation, because this was the first place that Song Ryu would go to. Qin Xing was close to the Shanghai Center building, so it didn't take long to walk there, but he didn't expect that Song Ryu would arrive earlier than him. Seeing Song Ryu, Qin Sheng laughed and said, "I just arrived too. I haven't bought a ticket yet." Song Ryu said in a clear voice, "Let's go and buy a ticket first." "Let's go and buy a ticket first." Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. He didn't know why there were so many tourists today, which shouldn't be the case. Qin Sheng waited in the line obediently. After Song Ryu bought 2 bottles of water, she stood beside Qin Sheng and chatted. Maybe she felt that it was troublesome for Qin Sheng, so she didn't want him to wait in the line alone. Qin Sheng asked curiously, "I thought you would go to a museum or the city god temple. I didn't expect that you would choose this place." Song Ryu said calmly, "What's wrong? Don't people come here when they come to Shanghai?" No. I can understand ordinary people, but I don't quite understand you," Qin Sheng explained with a smile. This was the truth. Many people from small places and cities came to Shanghai to feel the prosperity and charm of this big city, as well as the sense of achievement of looking at the world from the top. However, Song Ryu had grown up in the capital, so she might have been used to it. Song Ryu smiled faintly and said, "I'm also an ordinary person. I won't refute your explanation." Qin Sheng admitted that he couldn't reason with Song Ryu. He could tell her that if she were an ordinary person, then there would be no one in China who wasn't. However, Qin Sheng thought that Song Ryu's idea might be different from others. Song Ryu suddenly stared at Qin Sheng and asked, "Are you afraid of heights? If you are, we don't have to go there." "What? How is that possible?" Qin Sheng said confidently. He was not afraid of heights at all. As a man who had lived in the mountains, he had seen all kinds of height. Song Ryu nodded silently and said, "Oh, that's good." There were many people buying tickets, but everyone was waiting in line. At this time, 2 young people couldn't help but suddenly run to a pair of old people in front of Qin Sheng to cut the line. The 2 old people were pushed backward and almost fell down. Fortunately, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu held them up. Before Qin Sheng said anything, Song Ryu asked, "Everyone is waiting in line. Why did you cut the line?" Unexpectedly, the 2 young people didn't take Song Ryu seriously at all. They even replied viciously, "Did you cut the line? You like to meddle in other people's business." Originally, everyone was pointing at the 2 young people's behavior, but no one stood out to criticize them. Only Song Ryu stood out. However, Song Ryu did not expect that the 2 young men would be so vicious. Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly upon hearing this. He was in a good mood, but he ate a pile of shit. He had to teach the 2 young men a lesson. However, to his surprise, as soon as the 2 young people finished speaking, Song Ryu directly slapped the young man's face, which directly shocked everyone around. Even the young man didn't expect that the delicate beauty in front of him would slap him. Chapter 458. My God! As the material life got better and better, people would naturally pursue the improvement of their spiritual world. Therefore, in today's society, everyone's quality was getting higher and higher. However, there were always some rats that spoiled the pot of porridge. These 2 young people were a typical example. Regardless of whether it was an adult or a child, once they reached a certain age, they would have to take responsibility for everything they did. This was especially true for those naughty brats. If the consequences were to be disastrous, it would be too late by then. These 2 young people seemed to be in their early 20s. Not to mention that they cut the queue without any manners, just based on their unrestrained scolding. Qin Sheng should teach them a good lesson on behalf of his parents and let them know how to behave. However, except for Song Ryu, who stood out to criticize the 2 young people for cutting in line, the others were indifferent. Qin Sheng could understand why the 2 old people did that. After all, they were old. But what about the others? Could it be that they had nothing to do with it? In today's society, most people were indifferent bystanders. It was no wonder that the traditional Chinese virtues, such as bravery for a just cause, eventually became scarce. After Qin Shing sighed with emotion, he didn't care so much anymore. What he needed to do now was to protect Song Ryu. If Song Ryu was beaten up, Qin Shing would be involved. Maybe the Song family would blame it on him. However, Qin Shing didn't expect that Song Ryu, who looked as gentle as jade, would do things in a totally different way. Was she not afraid of being beaten? No one expected that Song Ryu would dare to beat the young man, but she would definitely pay the price. After being slapped by Song Ryu in front of everyone, the young man, who cared about his reputation and manners, became angry instantly. He was ready to fight back without hesitation. After slapping the young man, Song Ryu subconsciously took 2 steps back. Of course, she knew what the consequences would be, but she had Qin Shing's help. The result was self-evident. When the young man raised his arm, Qin Shing, who had taken 2 steps forward, grabbed his wrist. Qin Shing sneered and said, "If I were you, I wouldn't have come out to embarrass my parents." Qin Shing really had to teach these 2 little ancestors a good lesson. No matter what, this was Shanghai. If you didn't have some ability, don't come out to show off. I'm saving you from the fire and water. Do you know who this beauty's grandfather is? Qin Shing thought to himself, don't come out and show off. Do you know what will happen if you hit her? Motherf **Ker, who do you think you are? You're courting death. The young man was humiliated by Qin Shing again and was extremely angry. He lifted his leg and kicked at Qin Shing. Qin Shing did not bother to talk nonsense with him. He lifted his leg and directly clamped the inside of the young man's thigh. Following that, he grabbed the young man's arm, turned around, and threw him over his shoulder. He threw the young man 2 meters away. This was under the condition that Qin Shing held back his strength. Otherwise, the young man would really have to lie in bed for half a month. Even so, the young man was still lying on the ground, moaning in pain, unable to stand up at all. When the other young man saw this situation, he had to go forward regardless of whether he could defeat Qin Shing or not. When a friend was in trouble, he had to do it. Unfortunately, his idea was right, but his strength was too weak. Before he could get close to Qin Shing, he was kicked in the chest by Qin Shing and flew backward. Seeing that the general trend had been decided, the onlookers cheered one after another. They were just short of hanging a big red flower on Qin Shing's chest. This was how society was now. Those things that we thought were common in the past had become rare now. It was no wonder that some people were disappointed in this society. Seeing Qin Shing's power, Song Ryu asked curiously, "You're so good at fighting?" She had seen a lot of people who were good at fighting, such as her grandfather's guards. But it was the first time that she had met a friend who was so good at fighting. Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "If I were not good at fighting, the 2 of us would have been beaten today. Why were you so impulsive? You're a girl. How could you beat them without saying a word?" Song Ryu blinked and asked, "They cut the queue and scolded me. Did I do anything wrong?" Qin Shing was speechless. "I didn't mean that. Of course you didn't do anything wrong. These 2 guys were asking for a beating. I mean, if you were alone, what if you were so impulsive just now and were at a disadvantage?" Song Ryu shook her head and said, "I didn't think so much. I just thought that since they scolded me like that, I should beat them. If I were at a disadvantage, I would have no complaint. But in the end, they would definitely be at a disadvantage." Qin Shing and Song Ryu found it hard to understand Song Ryu's thoughts. Qin Shing said helplessly, "Sister, you're right. I can't refute you." Song Ryu didn't want anyone to understand her, nor did she care what others thought of her. She only wanted to do what she thought was right. What was right, and what was wrong. It had nothing to do with other things. The 2 young men were not injured at all. They already knew that they were no match for Qin Shing, so they did not dare to provoke him anymore. In addition, they had lost so much face here, so they left eagerly. After the interlude, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu finally bought the ticket. They followed the sign to the special elevator that led to the sightseeing floor of the Shanghai Center building. In fact, Qin Sheng had never been to the sightseeing floors of these high-rise buildings in Pudong. He had always been used to watching these things from below. The speed of the elevator was a little fast. Qin Sheng was very calm. Song Ryu only felt a slight buzzing in her ears. Qin Sheng smiled and asked, "There are many such buildings in Beijing, such as the World Trade Center. Why did you come to Shanghai to see it?" Song Ryu shook her head and said, "When I was in Beijing, I liked to go to those small alleys. I don't like those prosperous places. Besides, I always meet acquaintances there. It's not good." Qin Sheng did not ask any more questions. He did not want Song Ryu to think that he was long-winded. After they went upstairs, Song Ryu was like a child who had seen the world for the first time. She walked around the entire sightseeing hall twice, looking very happy. She kept pointing to the distance and asking Qin Sheng where it was. She even asked Qin Sheng to take a few photos of her. If Qin Sheng did not know Song Ryu's identity, he would definitely think that Song Ryu was a silly girl from a small city, just like when he had first arrived in Shanghai. However, Qin Sheng knew Song Ryu's identity and thought that such a woman should have higher aspirations and taste. How could she be so simple? After coming out of the sightseeing hall of the Shanghai Center building, Song Ryu asked Qin Sheng to take her to the Bund across the street. The Bund was crowded with people. Qin Sheng had been there many times and had dined in several restaurants on the Bund. "Just in time. We'll have lunch at the Bund later. I know several good restaurants, but I don't know if I need to make a reservation," Qin Sheng said conveniently. Song Ryu shook her head directly and said, "I like snacks. Do you know where the snacks in Shanghai are delicious? Not the snacks that can be found all over the country, but the local specialties." Qin Sheng was used to Song Ryu's unconstrained ideas, so he did not ask why. Maybe it was because a rich girl from a big city wanted to experience the joys and sorrows of ordinary people. He just nodded and said, "Okay, you can eat whatever you want." They walked around the Bund for a whole hour. Song Ryu, who had a camera with her, liked to take pictures. She walked and stopped, either to take pictures of the buildings or the beautiful scenery, or to take pictures of the pedestrians on the road. People who did not know her would think that she was a photographer. Qin Sheng could not walk anymore, but Song Ryu looked very energetic. He could not help but regret that he had promised his grandmother. Later, Qin Sheng really could not walk anymore, so he sat on the roadside and waited for Song Ryu. When Song Ryu felt hungry, she walked back and asked Qin Sheng to take her to eat. For the whole day, Qin Sheng accompanied Song Ryu to wander around Shanghai. Song Ryu did not buy anything except for the small ornaments and handicrafts that she liked. Most of the time, they were either walking or walking. Qin Sheng felt that it was a kind of torture for him. At dinner time, Song Ryu took the initiative to ask, "Sorry for troubling you for a whole day. Let me treat you to dinner. What do you like to eat?" "Hot pot and food stalls," Qin Sheng said honestly, knowing that Song Ryu would definitely win in the end. Song Ryu thought for a few seconds and replied, "I also like food stalls. When I was in Beijing, I often went to Gui Street with my friends to eat crayfish barbecue." Qin Sheng was stunned again. He thought it was understandable if Song Ryu liked Western food, Japanese food, and so on. But why did she like to eat at food stalls like a poor loser like him? What's wrong? Song Ryu saw Qin Sheng staring at her in a daze, so she was confused. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Nothing. I'm used to it." So Qin Sheng took Song Ryu to the food stalls that they used to go to often. They ordered a lot of food and some beer. Song Ryu then told him that she had never drunk alcohol before. "You've never drunk beer?" Qin Sheng asked in surprise. Song Ryu nodded and said, "No, I'm allergic to alcohol." Qin Sheng understood her more or less, so he smiled and said, "You're not lucky. Beer and barbecue are the best match. Qin Shing ate and drank, while Song Ryu could only eat vegetables. Qin Shing ate quickly, which looked delicious. Anyone who ate with Qin Shing would probably eat 2 more bowls of rice. Seeing Qin Shing drinking boldly, Song Ryu couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Can I have a taste?" Qin Shing found it funny and said, "Okay, I'll pour you a glass. Have a taste." So Qin Shing poured some for Song Ryu. Song Ryu had never drunk alcohol before, so she wouldn't touch any kind of alcohol, no matter who tried to persuade her to drink. She remembered that there was a small gathering in the past where a pretentious guy who didn't know what was good for him forced her to drink. Her brother happened to be there, so of course he flipped the table and beat up the guy who drank too much. From then on, no one dared to persuade her to drink anymore. Song Ryu took the beer glass and tried to smell the alcohol. She didn't smell anything strange. Then she carefully put the glass in her mouth and took a sip. Song Ryu's beautiful face instantly twisted. She directly put the beer glass on the table, frowned and said, "It's too bad." Qin Shing was amused by Song Ryu's embarrassing look and burst into laughter. It was so funny that he almost burst into tears. Song Ryu asked unhappily, "Is it funny? Isn't it funny?" Qin Shing asked. Song Ryu was so angry that she didn't say anything and just focused on eating. Suddenly, Qin Shing was curious about Song Ryu's job. He was afraid that she would not fit in with her colleagues in the company. So he asked, "Ryu, where do you work?" Song Ryu didn't know what Qin Shing meant. She thought he was just asking casually, so she replied calmly, "The Central Policy Research Office." Chapter 459. Back to Beijing. The barbecued meat and seafood were delicious, and so was the beer. However, Qin Shing was not interested in them now, because he was shocked by Song Ryu's work. He did not expect this woman to be so excellent. It should be known that not everyone could enter this department, even if they were Red disciples. Without real talent, no one would be willing to go to such a department. "What's wrong with you?" Song Ryu found it funny. For her, it was just a job. After all, many of her friends worked in ministries and commissions, but not many people liked this kind of government office. However, Song Ryu liked this job very much, because she could participate in the formulation of national policies and really change the fate of many people with practical actions. For example, the most important thing for her to come to Shanghai this time was to accompany the leader to investigate the feasibility of the concept of the Greater Bay Area of Hangzhou Bay, which was a national strategy. She had gone to places such as southern Jiangsu, Hangzhou, Ningbo, and so on. Shanghai was the last stop. After that, she asked the leader for 2 days off. Qin Shing smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It's okay. Let's drink." Song Ryu frowned and said, "I don't want to drink. Beer tastes terrible." Qin Shing smiled awkwardly and said, "Then I won't drink. You eat, I drink." After dinner, Qin Shing sent Song Ryu back. She had asked for 2 days off and stayed with relatives. Previously, she had stayed with her leader and colleagues in the hotel arranged by the municipal government. After Qin Shing returned, Lin Su, who was still working overtime, had not come back, which made Qin Shing feel helpless. This woman really worked hard. He somewhat regretted asking Lin Su to help his sister. It would be better to let her go back to her previous company and continue her previous career. Anyway, she was in charge of the Lin family now. In the following 2 days, Qin Shing accompanied Song Ryu to wander around Shanghai. During this period, they even went to Chongming Island. Qin Shing saw many good things about Song Ryu. The biggest advantage of this woman was that she was very clean inside. Everything she saw was very real and simple. However, her biggest hobby was to eat those snacks, especially when they went to the farmhouse on Chongming Island. She basically could not stop eating. Song Ryu was going back to Beijing in the afternoon. The old lady called Qin Shing last night and asked him to take Ryu to lunch at noon and then send her to the high-speed railway station. Zhu Qingwen, who had nothing to do, also came over. She had been busy these days, so she didn't have time to meet Song Ryu. As the host, it would be inappropriate for her not to meet Song Ryu since she had come to Shanghai. Zhu Qingwen called Qin Ran and asked if she was free at noon. Qin Ran said that she had a lot of things to deal with in the company. She had already met Ryu that day, so she would not go over today. However, she was afraid that her aunt would spill the beans, so she had no choice but to tell her aunt about the marriage between the Song and the Qin family. After Zhu Qingwen knew about it, she couldn't help but be shocked. She didn't expect that the old master of the Song and the Qin family would have such an engagement, which made her very surprised. As a result, Zhu Qingwen also fell into a dilemma like Qin Ran. She had already met Lin Su and was very satisfied with her. She also knew the story between Lin Su and Qin Xing. However, this girl from the Song family was not inferior to Lin Su in all aspects, especially in terms of family background. The Lin family definitely could not be compared. The Song family had contributed a lot to Qin Chang'an's current position. As long as old Master Song was still alive, the Song family's position would be unshakable. In the end, Zhu Qingwen simply stopped thinking about it and let it develop freely. Anyway, no matter who Qin Xing ended up with in the end, she would not have any opinion. Lunch was simple, which consisted of the children's favorite dishes. The old lady sat in the main seat, accompanied by Zhu Qingwen. Qin Xing and Song Ryu sat opposite to her. Zhu Qingwen looked Song Ryu and Qin Xing up and down calmly. It seemed that the two children were a good match, more or less like a husband and wife. Zhu Qingwen thought that people were greedy and insatiable. If there were only Lin Su or Song Ryu, there would definitely be no choice or consideration. However, the fact was that Lin Su and Song Ryu were both excellent and suitable for Qin Xing, which made it a bit difficult. The old lady asked with a smile, "Ryu, how was your trip these days? Did Xing take good care of you?" Song Ryu replied obediently, "Grandma, very good. Qin Xing took me to a lot of places that I had never been to before. I also ate a lot of delicious food. Thank you for your trouble these days. You're too polite. We're so familiar with each other, so don't be so polite. Xing has nothing to do, so it's natural for him to take you around. Moreover, when he comes back to Beijing, you should take care of him," the old lady said with a smile. Zhu Qingwen then said, "Ryu, you and Xing are the same age. Keep in touch. You should know what happened to Xing. He has a hard life and we feel sorry for him. But we're in Shanghai, and we can't take care of him when he comes back to Beijing. I guess he doesn't have any friends in Beijing, so you should help him in the future." Of course, Zhu Qingwen said this to create opportunities for Qin Xing and Song Ryu. Qin Xing knew that his grandmother and small aunt cared about him, but he was not a 3-year-old child and didn't need Song Ryu's care. In the end, he might have to take care of Song Ryu. Song Ryu smiled and nodded. "Grandma, Auntie, when he comes back to Beijing, I'll definitely return the favor," the old lady said happily. "You're so sensible." After lunch, Qin Xing drove Song Ryu to the high-speed railway station. On the way, Song Ryu asked, "When will you go back to Beijing?" Qin Xing replied casually, "If everything goes well, I'll go back tomorrow, because the advanced course I'm studying at Tsinghua University will start the day after tomorrow. I'm a diligent young man and never skip classes. When you come back, I'll treat you to dinner," Song Ryu said lightly. Qin Xing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sister, you've treated me to dinner 4 times in the past 3 days. Why do you want to treat me again?" "That's different. I'm the host in Beijing," Song Ryu said with a smile. Qin Xing was just joking, so he agreed gladly. He was only thinking about how to get in touch with Song Ryu's brother. From what had happened that day, he could tell what kind of status Song Ryu's brother had in the circle of Siju City. After seeing Song Ryu off, Qin Sheng immediately drove back to Pudong. At this time, Hao Lei had returned to Shanghai with Tang Shi from his hometown in Zhujiang. Tang Shi could have had a stable job in Hangzhou. However, because of Qin Sheng's involvement, he ended up in such a miserable situation. Qin Sheng felt somewhat guilty. Hao Lei had checked in for Tang Shi. After having lunch with Chang Baji and Tang Shi, they were chatting in the room, waiting for Qin Sheng's arrival. When Qin Sheng opened the door and walked in, Tang Shi stood up excitedly. He had never thought that Qin Sheng would still remember him. After all, he had been driven out of Hangzhou because he couldn't even protect himself. However, Tang Shi had never regretted his choice. Everyone had to be responsible for their own choices, no matter what the final result was. Moreover, if Qin Sheng hadn't appreciated him in Hangzhou, he wouldn't have climbed up from the bottom of Poly International. Brother Qin. Tang Shi didn't know what to say, so he could only call him Brother Qin. Qin Sheng walked over and hugged Tang Shi. Then he said in a low voice, "Brother, you don't have to say anything. I know everything about you. Let bygones be bygones. The good days are just beginning. You don't have to worry about other things. During this period you should take care of yourself. When you recover, we will go back to Hangzhou to take revenge." Upon hearing this, Tang Shi's blood instantly boiled. If he had the ability, he would certainly take revenge on those bastards who had broken his arms. Qin Sheng continued, "Tang Shi, when I was besieged on all sides, only a few of you could keep me company. I don't need to mention Brother Lei and Lao Chong. After all, our relationship is obvious. However, I didn't expect that you would follow me without hesitation, just like I didn't expect that Gu Xiaobo would betray me. Therefore, since you trust me, Qin Sheng, I will definitely give you a bright future." Tang Shi was moved by Qin Sheng's words and said incoherently, "Brother Qin, how could I, Tang Shi, be treated like this? I just did what I should do." Qin Sheng patted Tang Shi's shoulder and said, "It's warmest to send charcoal in snowy weather. I know." In the evening, knowing that Qin Sheng would go back to Beijing the next day, Qin Ran directly asked Lin Su to go back after work without waiting for her to ask. She didn't continue to work overtime like others did. When Lin Su returned to Shermao Riviera Garden, Qin Sheng had already prepared 4 dishes and a soup, waiting for her. He was definitely a good man at home. Lin Su hadn't eaten the food cooked by Qin Sheng for a long time. She was somewhat surprised to see such a sumptuous dinner. "I'm going back to Beijing tomorrow. During this period, I may have to go back to Xi'an. Therefore, you should take care of yourself when I'm not in Shanghai. If you have any problems, just turn to my sister or small aunt." Qin Sheng was somewhat worried. He guessed that after the thing in Ningbo was over, those people had already known that he was coming back. Maybe they had already found his whereabouts. Lin Su said calmly, "My sister has arranged 2 bodyguards for me to pick me up and take me to and from work every day. I'm in the company at other times. I should be fine." Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "You'd better be careful. After all, Yan Chaozong is in Shanghai. If it weren't for my sister's business in Shanghai, I would have taken you back to Beijing. In Beijing, of course, I don't have to worry about these things. Based on the status of the Qin family in Beijing, if Yan Chaozong really dared to make trouble in Beijing, he would be seeking his own death." Lin Su held Qin Sheng's hand and said, "I see. You can go in peace." It was another short separation. Naturally, they had a night of romance. Chapter 460. Chapter 459. Death. A little girl. It took 4.5 hours to get back to Beijing from Shanghai by high-speed rail. Qin Sheng did not choose to fly. He preferred to take the train and enjoy the scenery along the way. Chang Baji and Hao Lei sat in the back row of Qin Sheng. On the right side was a little girl who looked like she was in junior high school. She was watching a movie with an iPad in her hand. Qin Sheng just thought that the little girl was quite cute. Judging from her dress and temperament, she should be a child from a rich family. However, how could the elders in her family let her take the high-speed rail alone? Were they not afraid that something would happen to her on the way? Qin Sheng looked at the little girl who was watching the movie with interest. The little girl should also feel Qin Sheng's gaze. She raised her head and showed a bright smile to Qin Sheng. She greeted him, "Hello, uncle." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Shouldn't you call me brother?" The little girl was a little surprised. She immediately understood what was going on and changed the way she addressed him. "Hello, brother." Qin Sheng almost laughed out loud. She was really thick-skinned. As expected, no matter men or women, when they were old, they did not like to be called too old. Qin Sheng did not know how to evaluate the first half of his life. 30 years flew by in a flash. He did not have many achievements so far. Qin Sheng did not know how to evaluate the first half of his life. Qin Sheng had nothing to do and asked casually, "Are you going to Beijing alone? Is there no one to accompany you?" The little girl's voice was very sweet. "Grandma and Grandpa are old, and Uncle and Aunt are busy with work. I am old enough to take the train alone. Mom and Dad will pick me up at the station." "Then are you going to play?" Qin Sheng asked thoughtfully. What a sensible child. The little girl shook her head and said, "No, I am studying in Beijing. I went back to Shanghai during the holidays. The day after tomorrow, the school will start, so I came back to Beijing today." The little girl was very cute. She had a round face and big eyes. Her hair was black and shiny. She tied her hair into a ponytail with a flower hairband. She would definitely be a big beauty when she grew up. Qin Sheng deliberately teased her. "Then have you finished your winter vacation homework?" The little girl blinked and replied, "Brother, we don't have winter vacation homework." Qin Sheng was speechless. Kids nowadays were really lucky. They didn't even have to do homework during the holidays, unlike when he was in junior high school, where he had a lot of homework. Fortunately, Qin Sheng was very good at learning. Sometimes there would be teachers who would make an exception that he didn't have to do homework. He only needed to get into the top 10 of the whole grade. After chatting casually with the little girl for a while, Qin Sheng took out his computer and continued to supplement on the topic assigned by the old professor of the advanced studies class. It was a classic case of capital acquisition in the country, which involved a lot of unknown secret. At noon, the little girl got up to go to the toilet, but she was bumped into by a middle-aged woman who was probably also going to the toilet. If it were not for Qin Sheng's quick reflexes, the little girl would have hit the seat in front of her. When the middle-aged woman saw that it was a little girl, she did not apologize to the little girl at all. She did not know whether it was because she was in a hurry to go to the toilet or something else. The little girl shouted unhappily, "Auntie, you bumped into me." Unfortunately, the middle-aged woman had already walked far away and did not hear the little girl's voice at all. The little girl felt wronged and was about to cry. She had to sit down obediently, pouting and looking unhappy. "Brother, why didn't she apologize to me?" The little girl could not understand. She tilted her head and asked Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said lightly, "Then you can ask her later. She should apologize to you." The little girl thought for a while and then nodded. "Okay." A few minutes later, the middle-aged woman came back from the toilet. The little girl directly blocked the middle-aged woman's way and said, "Auntie, you haven't apologized to me yet." The middle-aged woman said disapprovingly, "Whose child is this? She is so uneducated. She just bumped into you. It's not like she lost an arm or a leg." Qin Sheng had to admire how thick-skinned she was. Where did she get her confidence from? Who was the one who was really uneducated? There were all kinds of people in this day and age. "Auntie, you bumped into me. You should apologize to me." The little girl did not let the middle-aged woman go. She continued to insist. Her mother said that if you did something wrong, you must admit your mistake and apologize. This was basic manners. But why didn't this auntie apologize? The middle-aged woman did not know whether it was because of menopause or her period. She pushed the little girl away in a bad temper and said, "Go away. Don't block my way. You don't care who the child is." The little girl was directly pushed to sit down by the middle-aged woman. She felt wronged and cried. Maybe it was the first time for her to go out alone. She did not know who she should tell, and could only bear it alone. This made Qin Shing very distressed. Adults all taught children to be polite and follow the rules. Some adults just did not follow these rules. Then how should children face this world? Their hearts must be full of contradictions. Qin Shing directly grabbed the middle-aged woman's arm and said, "Big sister, you bumped into my sister. You don't even apologize. Are you going to leave like this?" The middle-aged woman snorted and said, "You are so annoying. I just bumped into her. Do you need to be so entangled? Do you want to extort money? Come on, come on. Tell me, how much should I compensate you?" Qin Shing squinted and said, "Since you like to reason with money, then I will reason with you with money. Now I am going to break your arm. How much money do you want? I will compensate you." When Qin Shing said these words, he also secretly exerted strength in his hand. The middle-aged woman's face changed slightly in pain. Maybe she had met a tough opponent. She immediately admitted defeat and said, "I apologize. I apologize. Little girl, I am sorry. I did not mean it." When Qin Shing chose to fight, the little girl had stopped crying. She did not expect that this big brother would stand up for her. However, after hearing the middle-aged woman's apology, the little girl just said, "Oh," and ignored her. Obviously, she was still very unhappy in her heart. Qin Shing did not intend to be unreasonable. This kind of self-righteous woman would naturally pay the price for what she had done one day. Therefore, after the middle-aged woman apologized, Qin Shing let her go. The middle-aged woman left happily, leaving only people in the carriage pointing at her. Qin Shing sat back and asked in a low voice, "Still unhappy?" The little girl had already wiped away her tears. She nodded and said in a low voice, "Yes, she is not a good person." Qin Shing touched the little girl's hair and said, "No matter whether others are good or bad, as long as you are willing to be a good person, there will be one more good person in this world." The little girl blinked and looked at Qin Shing with her eyes still full of tears. She nodded as if she understood and then said, "Brother, you must be a good person." Qin Shing found it funny and said, "I used to want to be a bad person, but I found that I did not have this talent. Later, I tried to be a good person and found that it was also very difficult to be a good person. But I still think it is better to be a good person." The little girl finally smiled brightly and said, "Brother, I will be a good person." Qin Shing liked the girl's innocence very much. No matter what she would encounter in the future, at least she planned to be a good person now. A good deed was a good karma, and she would feel less guilty and regretful in her heart. Qin Shing asked casually, "What is your name?" "My name is Kur." The little girl said happily, "What is your name, brother?" Qin Shing smiled faintly and said, "Kur, this name is really nice. My name is Qin Shing, Qin as in Qin Shi Huang, Shing as in promotion and getting rich." Qin Shing introduced himself in this way, which made the little girl laugh. On the way, Qin Shing accompanied Kur to watch movies and told her jokes. Finally, her mood recovered, and she would not be disappointed in many things because of this small thing. Some people were very disappointed in this world, which was accumulated little by little. When the disappointment accumulated more and more, they naturally could not see the beauty of this world, and could only see the disappointment in their eyes. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they arrived at Beijing South Railway Station. Qin Shing got off the train with Kur and left the station. Nangong, who had returned to Beijing in advance, came to pick them up. Qin Shing planned to hand Kur over to her parents first, so that he would be completely relieved. However, Kur looked for her parents for a long time at the exit of the station. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. Qin Shing comforted her and said, "Don't worry, call them. Maybe they are still on the way." Kur nodded and took out her mobile phone to call her parents. However, no one answered the phone. This time, Kur was really anxious. Qin Shing thought for a moment and said, "Do you know where home is?" "Yes," Kur pouted and whispered. Qin Shing said faintly, "Then let me send you back." Kur comforted herself and said, "Brother, it's okay. I can take a taxi back. Maybe my parents forgot that I came back today." Qin Shing shook his head and held Kur's hand. He said, "It's okay. I have to go back to the city anyway. What if you run into bad people by taking a taxi alone? Let's go." After thinking for a while, Kur finally nodded and agreed to Qin Shing, but she felt quite embarrassed. Chapter 461. Visit and thank you. Qin Shing liked this little girl named Kur very much. She was cute, beautiful, kind, naive, smart and sensible. If he had a daughter like her in the future, he would spoil her to death. However, Qin Shing did not expect that Kur would live in the same alley as him. This was really fate. Qin Shing had to sigh with emotion. Many things in life were destined. Some people could be seen for thousands of years at a glance, and some people might not have any interaction even after thousands of times of passing by. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Kur found that her brother in front of her was always in a daze. She did not know what he was thinking about. Qin Shing touched Kur's hair and smiled. "You may not believe it, but we live in the same alley. Don't you think life is interesting?" Kur laughed out loud. "Brother, I don't believe it. I know you must be looking for a reasonable reason to send me back so that I won't feel so embarrassed. Brother, you are really a good man." Qin Shing knew that the more he explained, the more complicated it would be. He simply stopped explaining and smiled. "You will know later." Qin Shing held Kur's hand, and Hao Lei held her suitcase. Chang Baji and Nangong walked behind them. Nangong did not ask anything about the little girl, but he was curious why Lin Su did not follow them back to Beijing. Did she not want to let her foster father see her? On the way back to the Dengshiku West Street alley, Chang Baji sat in the front seat, while Qin Shing and Hao Lei sat in the back with Kur. Kur was obviously a little sleepy, and fell asleep in Qin Shing's arms. Qin Shing could not help laughing. Was she really not afraid that he was a bad guy in a mask? After entering the alley, Qin Shing could not help but wake Kur up. Kur asked in a daze, "Brother, have we arrived?" Qin Shing said happily, "Here we are. Take a look. Is it the alley we are in?" "So soon? I haven't had enough sleep." Kur did not care about the other meaning in Qin Shing's words. She just said so subconsciously. Then she took out her phone to see if her parents had called her. However, there were still no missed calls, which made Kur very unhappy. She pouted her lips so much that they could hang on her. She thought to herself that when she saw her grandfather later, she would definitely complain to him. Nangong continued to walk forward. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the Qin family's house. After Nangong parked the car, Qin Shing pointed at the Sihiyuan and said, "Kur, this is my house. Where is your house?" Kur seemed to believe his words at this moment. She murmured, "Brother, is your house really here?" Qin Shing laughed and said, "Why would I lie to you?" Upon hearing this, Kur suddenly danced with joy and said, "Really? Brother, that's great. Then can I play with you often in the future?" Qin Shing laughed out loud and said, "Anytime." At this time, the gate of the Sihiyuan of the Qin family was already open. They got out of the car at the gate. Qin Shing pulled Kur's suitcase and asked, "Let's go. Where is your home?" "I'll take you home." Kur pointed at a Sihiyuan, which was only a few houses away from the Qin family, and said, "Brother, that is my house. We are so close to each other. By the way, brother, why haven't I seen you before?" Qin Shing explained casually, Because my brother used to work in other places, so we haven't seen each other. Alright, I'll send you home first. Qin Shing asked Changbaji, Hao Lei, and the others to wait in the house first. He continued to walk forward with Ku'er. He seemed to have some memory of that house. On normal days, the gate was closed as tightly as the Qin family's house. However, during the Spring Festival, there were cars coming and going at the gate. Many of the cars had special license plates, and there were guards and bodyguards in military uniforms. Obviously, it was not an ordinary family. This made Qin Shing more curious about Ku'er's identity. However, Qin Shing could understand that there were many retired old cadres living in these alleys. All of them were rich and powerful families. The two houses were only about 100 meters away from each other, so they soon arrived at the gate of Ku'er's house. Qin Shing asked Ku'er to ring the doorbell. Soon after, a young man walked out. When he saw Qin Shing, he was a little surprised. However, he naturally paid more attention to Ku'er. "Oh, my little lady, why did you suddenly come back?" The young man was dressed very handsomely and looked quite energetic. He should be about 24 or 25 years old. Ku'er pouted and said with a wronged expression, "Dad and Mom didn't come to pick me up. I'm very unhappy. I want to tell Grandpa." The young man was surprised and said, "Then how did you come back?" Ku'er pointed at Qin Shing and explained, "It was this big brother who sent me back. Big brother is very nice." The young man was more or less confused, but he still responded politely, "Brother, I don't know how to address you. Thank you so much." Qin Shing smiled faintly and said, "It's okay. I happen to live nearby, so I sent Ku'er back. However, I have to say, a little girl taking the high-speed train alone and arriving at the station without an adult to pick her up, it is very easy for her to get into trouble." Upon hearing this, the young man could not help but feel a little scared. If this little lady was lost, the Holy Family would be in chaos. He had to report this to Grandpa. The young man was very humble. He did not have the temper of a rich playboy at all. He kept talking with a smile and said, "You're right. We were too careless." Since Ku'er had been sent there, Qin Shing did not stay any longer. After all, Lao Chong and Hao Lei were still waiting there. So Qin Shing said sensibly, "Since Ku'er has been sent here, I won't disturb you anymore. I'm leaving." The young man said sincerely, "Hey, brother, how can I do this? Come in and have a seat. I haven't thanked you properly yet." He was not hypocritical at all, nor did he have the indifference of a big family that kept people thousands of miles away. Qin Shing smiled and said, "It's just a small matter. You don't have to be so polite. Moreover, I live on this street. Ku'er knows where my home is. See you later if there is a chance." After Qin Shing finished speaking, he turned around and left. Ku'er hurriedly said goodbye to her brother. Obviously, this big brother had a high position in her heart. When Qin Shing returned to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Changbaji and Hao Lei had been taken in by Nangong. Qin Chang'an and the old housekeeper, Gong Sun, were not there. The Sihiyuan of the Qin family was in charge of Aunt Shui, who was mainly in charge of the internal affairs of the Qin family. Gong Sun was more in charge of the external affairs of the Qin family. Even Changbaji, who had traveled extensively and experienced many ups and downs, was shocked by the Qin family's Sihiyuan after walking into it, not to mention Hao Lei, who had not seen much of the world. It was not until then that they realized how powerful the Qin family behind Qin Shing was. On the way, when they met bodyguards or servants, they would politely call Nangong second lady. After all, she was Qin Chang'an's adopted daughter. The eldest lady of the Qin family was naturally Qin Chang'an's biological daughter. It was the first time for Hao Lei to meet Nangong at the Beijing South Railway Station. He was very curious about this beautiful, sexy, but somewhat murderous woman. However, Qin Shing did not introduce her. Hao Lei just greeted her politely. As he had expected, he was ignored. At this moment, Hao Lei asked in a low voice, Lao Chang, have you met this woman before? Is she also Qin Shing's sister? Actually, she is Qin Shing's younger sister, Chang Baji explained casually. But she is not his biological sister. She is just the adopted daughter of Qin Shing's father. Hao Lei finally understood. He smiled and nodded. He did not know whether this second lady had a boyfriend or not. He liked the temper of this beautiful woman, who was full of murderous intent. However, he was afraid that he could not get close to the Qin family. After walking into the central courtyard, it was really magnificent. Hao Lei could not help sighing and said, I heard that the Sihiyuan in Beijing can easily exceed 100 million yuan. Lao Chang, how much do you think the Sihiyuan of the Qin family is worth? Hao Lei was like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. Chang Baji had calmed down after being shocked by the most boasting. He said casually, I don't know. But it must be worth a lot. Hao Lei continued to sigh and said, I really want to know what the Qin family does. Since they are so rich, I just found out that the richest brother of mine is actually Lao Qin. Nan Gong took Chang Baji and Hao Lei to the living room and asked the servant to make tea for them. Then she said, You wait here. He should be back soon. After saying that, Nan Gong left and went out to call Uncle Gongsun to ask about their plans for the night. Although Nan Gong had fought side by side with Chang Baji, she did not have much communication with him. As for Hao Lei, there was no need to talk about it. Qin Shing's friend was Qin Shing's friend. It had nothing to do with her. After a while, Qin Shing came back. After walking into the living room, he smiled and said, I did not expect that little girl to live in this alley. But her parents are really careless. They could even forget such an important thing as taking care of the child. Did you deliver it? Hao Lei asked. Qin Shing nodded and said, I gave it to her brother. Young master, I did not expect that your family is so rich. I will definitely cling to you in the future. Don't think about abandoning me, Hao Lei said half-jokingly. Qin Shing snorted and said, Go away. Nan Gong came in after the call. Qin Shing asked, Where is the old man? Nan Gong said honestly, He is in the group. Uncle Gongsun said that the old man is busy today. He has a more important dinner tonight, so he will come back late. He can't have dinner with you. Qin Shing nodded silently. He did not feel dissatisfied at all, because he had felt something strange in Shanghai. Obviously, something had happened. Otherwise, Shanghai and Beijing were so busy. The kitchen had already prepared lunch. After all, they had not had lunch yet. Qin Shing had eaten a lot of Ku Air's snacks on the high-speed train. In the afternoon, Qin Shing stayed in the Sihiyuan with Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Then he asked Nan Gong to arrange accommodation for them nearby. It was not that he did not want Chang Baji and Hao Lei to live in the Sihiyuan, but the old man's existence would inevitably make everyone feel at a loss. Moreover, the atmosphere in the Qin family was obviously not right recently. Chapter 462. A lonely back in the alley where the Qin family was located, all the gates were closed and the walls were high. Nobody could see what was going on inside from the outside, so there were no ordinary families here. Usually, people didn't walk around. After all, cars were coming and going. Moreover, they were all rich and powerful people. How could they have time? Anyway, they were old neighbors who had lived here for many years. Of course, they knew each other, but they didn't have much interaction. Even if they knew the specific background of each family, they wouldn't deliberately walk around. They just nodded to each other when they saw each other. Because the power field in Siju City was particular about social circle and identity. Not everyone could be friends with each other. Qin Shing didn't know the background of Ku Er's family, but if Qin Chang'an was here, he would definitely tell him what the elders of the Li family did. Similarly, Ku Er's family also knew the background of the Qin family and Qin Chang'an's prominent identity. However, the Li family was not an ordinary family, and they were not in the same social circle. Naturally, they wouldn't be close to each other. If it was on a normal day, Ku-er's parents definitely wouldn't disturb them. But today, the man of the Qin family sent Ku-er back in person. No matter how they tried to keep a distance, they had to pay a visit out of courtesy, lest outsiders think that they were so uneducated. When the bodyguard at the door came in and told Qin Shing that a guest was looking for him, Qin Shing hurried out to welcome him. Chang Baji and Hao Lei also followed him out. Ku-er's parents stood in the front yard with Ku-er. They didn't walk in recklessly. They knew the rules of these rich families better than anyone else, so they could only wait for their master to come out. As soon as Qin Shing walked out of the middle yard, Ku-er broke free from her mother's restraint and ran to him. She deliberately joked, "Brother, we meet again. Did you miss me?" The innocent Ku-er was really naive. Only rich families could raise such a child, who could filter the darkness and filth of the world for them. As for the children of ordinary families, they had to experience the bitterness of life at a young age. This was the reality. "Ku-er, don't be so rude." Ku-er's mother, who was standing not far away, was a little unhappy. She was dressed more formally, so she should have just come home. Ku-er's mother was very beautiful. She was a young woman in her 30s. She looked elegant, but there was a hint of coldness between her eyebrows. The man standing beside her smiled and said, "Children are all like this. Don't worry about her." The man, who was wearing glasses, looked very approachable and always smiling. He walked slowly to Qin Shing and said, "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Ku-er's father. My name is Li Kuan. This is my wife, Fu Wen. Thank you so much for today." "I don't know how to thank you." Qin Shing touched Ku-er's head and said with a smile, "It's okay. It's just a piece of cake. I didn't expect that I would live in the same alley as Ku-er. But you have to be careful in the future. Ku-er is still young and it's very dangerous for her to go out alone. No matter how busy you are, you can't forget to pick up the child." Li Kuan stopped smiling and said, "I had an impromptu meeting. The leader arranged so many things in front of me, which also affects my future. I sent you a text message to explain. Can't you understand me?" Li Kuan stopped smiling and said, "Didn't I have an impromptu meeting? The leader arranged so many things in front of me. This is also related to my future. I sent you a text to explain. Can't you understand me?" Li Kuan stopped smiling and said, "I had an impromptu meeting. The leader arranged so many things in front of me, which also affects my future. I sent you a text message to explain. Can't you understand me?" Ku-er pouted and said helplessly, "Quarreling again. Always quarreling." Qin Shing felt a little strange. Obviously, Ku-er's mother was more domineering, and Ku-er's father did not have a position in the family, so they always quarreled. "I don't want to quarrel with you." Li Kuan stopped Fu Wen with one sentence. Then he turned to Qin Shing and said, "I'm sorry to let you see a joke. We like to quarrel. Anyway, thank you for what you did today. We came here for nothing. We just wanted to thank you in person." Qin Shing remembered that he did not invite them in. He said quickly, "It's okay, it's really okay. It's a little cold outside. Let's go in and sit for a while." Li Kuan refused politely, "It's okay. The old people at home are waiting for dinner." While Li Kuan and Qin Shing were talking, Fu Wen kept quietly looking at Qin Shing. She knew the background of the Qin family in this alley, but she had never seen the man in front of her. Ku-er said that his name was Qin Shing and he lived here. She did not know the relationship between him and the man. "Hasn't Master Qin come back yet?" Fu Wen asked casually. Li Kuan immediately stared at his wife. Obviously, it was taboo. Qin Shing did not take it seriously. He smiled and shook his head. "He hasn't come back yet. He might come back later." Not knowing whether Qin Shing was too polite or Fu Wen was too greedy, she asked unscrupulously, "We have lived in this alley for many years. Why haven't we seen you before? Pardon me, but what's your relationship with Master Qin?" After hearing Fu Wen's words, Li Kuan's face changed obviously, but he was more looking forward to Qin Shing's answer. After all, he was also very curious about Qin Shing's identity. Qin Shing said honestly, "He is my father." "Oh, I see." Fu Wen smiled very charmingly and did not ask the previous question about why hadn't she seen him before. Li Kuan was afraid that his wife would continue to ask random questions, so he said quickly, "It's getting late. We won't bother you anymore. We will invite you to our home another day. We'll go back first." After saying that, Li Kuan called Kur over. Kur said goodbye to Qin Shing reluctantly, and then left the Qin family with her parents. Qin Shing walked them out. After leaving the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Li Kuan snorted coldly. "You are too nosy. Why did you ask those questions? Isn't it superfluous?" "How is it superfluous? Don't tell me that you don't want to know the young man's identity?" Fu Wen replied disapprovingly. Others said that women should take care of their husbands and children, but she always thought that women were not as good as men. Moreover, she had always been faster than her husband, so she had a higher status in the family. Li Kuan sneered. "Qin Chang'an has been in trouble recently. So what if we know? Is this the reason why you deliberately keep your distance? Sometimes the Li family is too short-sighted, so you haven't made much progress." "I don't think so. Although Qin Chang'an has no contact with them, this young man is Qin Chang'an's son. Even if something really happens to Qin Chang'an, do you think they will stand by and do nothing? So the result is still unknown." Fu Wen analyzed and said. Li Kuan was not convinced. "Then let's make a bet." "How? What do you want to bet?" Fu Wen replied confidently. After thinking for a while, Li Kuan said playfully, "I bet that they won't help. If I win, can we try that posture? If you win, I will take care of the housework this year." After hearing Li Kuan's shameless words, Fu Wen blushed slightly, which made her more attractive. She hesitated for a while and replied, "Okay, then I will make a bet." The young couple seemed to have forgotten that Ku'er was following them. Ku'er was also absent-minded at this moment. She was thinking about what excuse to ask Qin Shing to go out to play in the future. Even if she heard it, she obviously wouldn't understand it. In the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Chang Baji and Hao Lei left after dinner. Nangong had arranged a place for them to stay in a nearby 5-star hotel. After all, there were many hotels in this area. After Qin Shing packed his luggage, he prepared what he needed for tomorrow's class and waited for Qin Chang'an to come back. When it was almost midnight, Qin Chang'an, who smelled of alcohol, came back with Gongsun. After seeing Qin Shing sitting in the living room, Qin Chang'an, who was slightly drunk, smiled and said, "You are back." Although the father and son hadn't untied the knot, their relationship was not as stiff as before. Qin Shing stood up and replied, "Yes, I came back in the afternoon." Qin Shing hesitated for a while and said, "You are old. You'd better drink less in the future. It's not good for your health." This seemingly casual sentence made Qin Chang'an's heart filled with warmth. After all, it was his son's concern for him. Qin Chang'an said happily, "Some old friends got together and drank a little. Everyone in Beijing knows that I, Qin Chang'an, am not drunk even after 1,000 drinks." After saying the last sentence, Qin Chang'an said in a hurry, "It's better to drink less. I am old, I am old." After Qin Chang'an sat down, Qin Shing greeted Uncle Gongsun. The servants also hurried to serve the prepared sobering tea. They had long been used to Qin Chang'an coming back late. "Although my sister didn't say anything about what happened in Ningbo, I know you helped me. So I still want to thank you," Qin Shing said unhurriedly. However, he still felt that what he said was a little weird. Qin Chang'an said seriously, "There is no need to say thank you to a father and son. Have you ever seen a family like this? You are my son. You were bullied. If I don't help you vent your anger, how can I be your father? Our Qin family is not a pushover. Any cat or dog dares to act wildly. Qin Shing nodded and did not refute this sentence. After all, father and son were father and son. Qin Shing hesitated for a moment and still asked, "Is something wrong with the company?" Qin Chang'an was a little surprised and directly refuted. "Who did you hear this from? How is it possible? I, Qin Chang'an, have been in Siju City for so many years. I have seen all kinds of things and experienced all kinds of troubles. It is just a small thing. You don't have to think so much." Qin Chang'an was afraid that Qin Shing would continue to ask. After drinking the tea, he directly stood up and said, "I am a little tired. I can't talk to you today. If there is anything else, let's talk about it tomorrow." Qin Shing nodded slightly. He could tell that Qin Chang'an was already drunk. It was just that Qin Chang'an tried to stay sober after seeing Qin Shing. However, it was not possible for him to stay sober all the time. Just like the way Qin Chang'an spoke just now, he lacked some of his usual dignity, which surprised Qin Shing a little. Qin Shing watched as Qin Chang'an went upstairs alone. When Qin Chang'an went up the stairs, he had no choice but to hold on to the railing. He bent his body and continued to walk forward with difficulty. It was unknown whether he was drunk or he was really old. Chapter 463. How thoughtful. At this moment, Qin Shing felt a little upset. He knew that something must have happened to the company. Otherwise, the old man would not look so tired. He just bore all the pressure alone and did not intend to tell him. In fact, even if he told him, he would not be able to help. This feeling of powerlessness made Qin Shing a little annoyed. After the old man went upstairs, Qin Shing withdrew his gaze. He looked at Uncle Gongsun and frowned. "Uncle Gongsun, I know there are some things that the old man does not want to tell me. But since I have returned to the Qin family, the Qin family's business is also my business. No matter whether I can help or not, I should know more or less." Gongsun did not know what to say. Since Qin Chang'an did not tell Qin Shing, he could not make a decision on his own. But Qin Shing was not an outsider. It was not good to be kept in the dark. After weighing the pros and cons, Gongsun decided to reveal a little. "Well, although it is not a big thing, it is a little troublesome. If we do not handle it well, there may be sequelae. Now the only thing we lack is time, so the master is very busy during this period." Qin Shing asked subconsciously, "Uncle Gongsun, what can I do to help?" Gongsun smiled and shook his head as he said, "There are professionals and teams to manage everything. Master is never fighting alone. If you really want to help, you should take over the group's affairs as soon as possible and take up the responsibility as soon as possible. In this way you can really reduce the pressure on Master." Qin Shing let out a long sigh. "Well, I have decided. After the Tsinghua University advanced course is over, I will officially join the company." "That's good," Gongsun said happily. Uncle Gongsun must have been very busy and tired from accompanying the old man recently, so Qin Shing did not ask Uncle Gongsun too much. After chatting with him for a while, he let Uncle Gongsun rest. He went back to his room and searched for some rumors about the group on the internet. He really found a lot of things. In the morning, when Qin Shing woke up and went downstairs, the old man and Uncle Gongsun had already gone out. The servant told him that they did not even have breakfast, saying that they were going to visit an old man in the West Mountain. After Qin Shing finished running in the gym, he took a shower and had breakfast. Chang Baji and Hao Lei were already waiting outside in the car. So Qin Shing took his things and set off for Tsinghua University. The car that Chang Baji drove was still the same one that Qin Shing had driven before the Spring Festival. After all, this car had the entry and exit procedures of Tsinghua University, and so on. On the way, Qin Shing chatted with Chang Baji and Hao Lei casually and prepared for today's homework at the same time. After entering the campus of Tsinghua University, Qin Shing guided Chang Baji to the direction of the School of Economics and Management. Hao Lei's eyes were full of envy as he said, "This is Tsinghua University, the best university in the country. It's a pity that I didn't study hard before and didn't even go to college. If I have a next life, I will definitely be admitted here." Tsinghua University and Peking University were places that every student yearned for. Who didn't want to work hard to get into these two universities, especially those children from poor families? If they could get into these two universities, knowledge would really change their fate. Nowadays, many people were advocating the theory that studying was useless. Qin Shing sneered at it. He remembered that Long Yingtai had said to his son, "Son, I ask you to study hard not because I want you to compare with others, but because I hope you have the right to choose in the future. Choose a meaningful job with time, instead of being forced to make a living. Studying hard and learning some skills might not necessarily make you a millionaire or a multimillionaire, but at least it could let you choose a job you like, instead of being forced to let the job choose you. What's more, studying hard could make better friends. Making useful friends was not a matter of skill. You had to admit that making good friends would benefit you for a lifetime. You could learn a lot from a group of good friends. For example, responsibility, persistence, good habits, and so on. You could better understand yourself and be clearer about your strengths and weaknesses. You could grow up together, make progress together, become more outstanding together, and so on. However, if you didn't study hard, it was difficult to make good friends. Most of the friends around you would be the same as you. After all, the circle of people was the circle of people. It was difficult for a hard-working person to become good friends with an ignorant and incompetent person. It was not because they looked down on them or did not deserve them, but because the two kinds of people had different values. There was no common language, so it was difficult to communicate. In China, the best shortcut to make good friends was to study hard and get into a great university, such as Tsinghua University and Peking University. In this way, you would be surrounded by excellent people in the future. In this society, many people made a living at the bottom. Most people would regret that they didn't study hard. Only after experiencing the hardships of the society, they would know how easy it was for them to miss the opportunity. There was no such thing as a greenhouse outside the campus. The outside world would not forgive you for not working hard in the past. The laziness in your studies would be repaid in another way in the future. A short period of comfort would only make you live at the bottom of society for the rest of your life. Qin Shing felt lucky that he didn't slack off in his studies and got into Fudan University smoothly. That was how he got to know friends like Xia Ding. Even if he didn't have the identity he had now, he could also achieve something with his original ability. It was just a matter of time. For example, Hao Lei was very envious of straight-A students like Qin Shing and Su Qin. He was even more envious that they got into a good university and enjoyed the so-called college life. He could only join the army after graduating from high school. Only Hao Lei knew what he had gone through and what kind of hardships he had suffered during those years. Therefore, it was reasonable for Hao Lei to feel so envious and emotional at this moment. Qin Shing could naturally understand. He smiled and said, "During this period, I'll be teaching at Tsinghua University. You can go to the majors you like to attend. Besides, there are many public classes or speeches by big shots and professors. Anyone can go. I'll send you the schedule at that time." Hao Lei was a little surprised. "That works. What do you think?" Qin Shing said happily. After arriving at the gate of the School of Economics and Management, Qin Shing took his things and went upstairs. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had nothing to do and strolled around Tsinghua University. Looking at these geniuses who were in high spirits and blooming with youthful spirit, even Chang Baji was a little envious, not to mention Hao Lei. The class officially started at 9:30. Each class lasted for an hour, with a half-hour break in the middle. There were still 2 classes in the afternoon. When Qin Shing arrived at the big classroom, most of the people had already arrived. After all, they had been together for a period of time and were familiar with each other. They even formed a small circle of twos and threes. At this moment, they were chatting in the classroom and talking about some interesting things before and after the spring festival. After Qin Shing came in, many students greeted him along the way. Qin Shing did not show that he was 1,000 miles away from them. Although he did not participate in any circle, he got along well with his classmate. Han Su, the ignorant and incompetent playboy, had become the most popular in the class. After all, he had taken many classmates to play all over Beijing before the Spring Festival. Seeing Qin Shing coming, Han Su hurriedly ran out of the crowd and came to Qin Shing's side. He said, "Lao Qin, long time no see. I miss you very much. I finally see you." Qin Shing rolled his eyes at him and said, "We haven't seen each other for a month and a half, but you say it as if we haven't seen each other for 10 years. One day apart feels like 3 years. We haven't seen each other for a month and a half, which is 100 years. Han Su was still dressed in fancy clothes and joked nonsense. Qin Shing did not bother to pay attention to this guy. Han Su took the initiative to invite him. "Do you have anything to do tonight? I have an appointment with a few friends. Let's go together." "I won't go. You guys have fun." Qin Shing refused euphemistically. He still hoped to go back early at night and ask the old man about the two things, which were about Uncle Lin and Jiang Xianbang. Han Su continued, "Big brother, don't be like this. You should hang out more. After all, we can meet in the same class. It is also fate, don't you think so?" Qin Shing hesitated for a moment and said, "Let's talk about it at night. If there is nothing else, I will go over." "Okay, that's more like it." Since Qin Shing had said so, Han Su did not continue to pester him. Han Su was pulled away by a few classmates to chat. At this time, Wei Li walked over again and said politely, "Happy New Year. You have already called me for the New Year. You don't have to pay New Year's greetings anymore." Qin Shing was no longer so cold to Wei Li, but he did not treat Wei Li as a friend. Wei Li leaned on the table next to Qin Shing and said with a smile, "It's different." Qin Shing smiled faintly and did not say anything. He controlled the relationship with Wei Li, and it depended on what Wei Li said to him. "Lao Han called me. Will you go over tonight?" Wei Li asked casually. Qin Shing said in a low voice, "I don't know yet. Let's talk about it later. I have a lot of things to do since I just returned to Beijing." "Well, I understand." Wei Li smiled awkwardly. He did not know how to ask about that matter. If he asked so boldly, it would make Qin Shing think too much. But he had almost guessed it. The person behind the matter that stirred up Ningbo was definitely Qin Shing. Otherwise, he really could not think of anyone who had such great ability. If it was only about Lin Songhao, Wei Li might not suspect Qin Shing. But so many things had happened to the Lin family, so Qin Shing had to connect the two things together. Qin Shing did not say anything again. The atmosphere was more or less awkward. Finally, Wei Li could not help but ask, "Those people in Hangzhou are investigating what happened in Ningbo recently. Maybe your information has been leaked, so you should be careful recently." "Thank you for reminding me," Qin Shing responded politely. Then he said, "I am far away in Beijing. I still need your help with what happened in Hangzhou." Wei Li was not afraid that Qin Shing would ask for help. He was afraid that Qin Shing would not ask for help. Hearing this, Wei Li immediately promised, "Ha ha ha, these are all small things. I have arranged everything. If there is any trouble, I will tell you immediately." Qin Shing squinted and said, "Thank you." There were two meanings in one sentence, but he did not know which one Wei Li understood. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.